To open it to the public, right, Eric, or? Yeah, it looks, yeah, we're on air. Okay. Let me make sure I'm sharing the screen. I am, yeah.
Okay, if we'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We probably have the approval of the minutes first here. Approve the agenda, actually, first. Anybody have any comments on the agenda?
Negative.
Negative, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved, okay, Abby got that, and the second,
Second.
okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we can move on to previous meeting notes and introductory remarks.
So yeah, we just want we need a motion to approve the notes as well for last meeting.
Okay, so we want to, the notes from last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so, motion to approve the meeting notes from last month. Okay, we've got Linda, second.
Second.
Okay, got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
All right.
All right, all right.
Perfect, okay, welcome all to this is I think the meeting we've all been waiting for. The zoning discussion, as you all know, you have received and reviewed, the zoning applications. We have sent you everything, that we've received, so you guys have been able to look at everything. And we'll break that down a little bit, but thank you all for your participation. I hope you see that it's really gonna help the process and conversations be more efficient, more effective, and really be able to go deeper if you want. So go to the next slide. So as Anna and as you all mentioned, the agenda again tonight's really going to be a big group discussion. This is an SAC work session. There will be opportunity for public comment at the beginning and at the end, but again, the majority of this meeting will be for you all to discuss internally and really be able to come up with a decision or no decision on these zoning recommendations for region. So, Anna, if you want to open up for public comment?
Okay, we're gonna open up for public comment, and while the guidelines say 2 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and go for 3 minutes and give time at the end if you want to stick around and have more comments afterwards. So I know we have at least one in the room, and I think maybe 1 or 2 online.
We have 2 folks online, last time I checked, so.
2 online, okay. Same person, okay, so would you like to start?
You want me to say anything?
You can say your name and
Okay. My name's Claude Morrissey. We live on Mount Airy Road in Davidsonville. 16 years ago, Liz and I came to Davidsonville and bought a 22 acres soybean fields. Happened to have a house on it, which was convenient, and we lived there and raised our kids who have now left empty nesters. But during that time, we developed the property from a soybean field into a horse boarding facility. It was a little marginal because it was 22 acres, but we did have the ability to ride out into the neighbouring establishments. There was even a surveyed bridle path in one of the developments adjacent to us. There was also a lot of vacant land on the road on that as well. Over the last 16 years, a lot of development has gone on. And, I estimate there's at least 20 houses gone up within half a million about it. And now we're unable to ride out. We've had people, and I understand, don't get me wrong, it's no hard feeling. I understand if you don't want our big horses clumping on your green grass, but leaving your deposits. But with the added intensity of the residential development, it has become impossible for us to ride out. And we are now an isolated block of land, as you can see, surrounded by 2 and 3 and 4 acre lots. And so I ask that you consider us for rezoning, RLD as it's called, which is 1 of 5. And we have 22 acres there, so maybe we could get another 3. or thereabouts houses, zoned to it. We have no immediate intention of developing it, but, as the county asked us, invited us to propose a rezoning, we're in keeping with that. So that's it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
You may or may not know this, some of the surrounding properties that were built up in the last few years. You happen to know if, when you bought your current properties, those were always like bonded?
Then on the right-hand side, it was subdivided. There's a 16-acre lot there that's now, got 4 homes on it.
Okay.
And I believe that got him under the wire with that, the previous.
Yeah.
There are a number of other houses that are further away that have been built, but I don't know the details.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And just for you all's recollection, this is Davidsonville 9, the application.
Did you say the county asked you to do that?
The letter, there's a letter came, and it's.
Yeah.
You sent a letter to all property owners.
Yeah.
We all got it. Yeah.
Bigger.
So I can tell where it is.
Everybody. This is the time. They weren't really invited to us, so they were told that this is the time if you're going to do it.
So it's north of Central Ave and west of Birdsville Road.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah, that big giant house that over there.
And then I see we have one other guest online. If you're interested in providing a public comment, please use the raise hand feature under reaction, so I can change your settings and we can all hear from you. You can also potentially send me a chat. We'll wait another second.
I think we can move on.
Okay.
That's my wife for advice.
All right.
Um,
Anybody else looking to give public comment tonight?
Do we have any other people that would like to give public comment tonight? Hi, we're doing public comment at the beginning and at the end if you just arrived. And so if you'd like to comment, you have 3 minutes. And all the other public commenters at this moment have commented. So,
Are we actually reviewing any zoning cases tonight?
yes, this is the time for comment now and at the very end. So if you have something you'd like to present or talk about, now would be the time to do so.
Okay, I just didn't know which ones were discussed.
Anything in region 8.
Anything for it? Then jump in if I may. I was retained by Dr. Pizarro on the piece of property in Davidsonville. The dental office has been in place there for decades. Property is done residential. They're asking for it to be rezoned as a small business, recognizing what the use has been in place and has been for quite some time. It matches nicely within the community, and most people are not even aware that it's not zoned commercially. But it does need to be made in conformance with the use as a dental practice. So we're asking for that property to give us some consideration in this small business. We could ask for something more intense, but it would not be in keeping with the neighborhood. Small businesses is the least intensive of any commercial designation, and they could be appropriate for the use and also for the area which is situated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Is that, I have a question. Is it currently done residential? It is, okay. And has been since there was some staff.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, but then got a various run business. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And that application number is Davidsonville 008.
And is anybody else that just arrived? Does anybody else want to make public comment before we get into the meeting? All right, thank you very much. Move on to group discussion.
So before we get too far into discussion, I just want to do a brief recap of a few things. just for your all, the SAC's awareness, again, I just want to show the ethics and conflict of interest statement, you've all read it, signed it, again, it essentially says that you have a vested interest, financial interest in the property. It would be well suited for you to recuse yourself from a final vote per se, but you can participate in the discussion. So again, just keep that in mind as we move forward. I know a few people abstained from the survey monkey responses, which I think following this is great, so I appreciate you guys being honest and helping out. So, next one. Again, the consistency continuum, ideally in a perfect world, we're all happy to 100% with every decision that's ever made, but we know this is the real world where things can have people that have different ideas and opinions and thoughts. Please be respectful of one another as we're discussing these conversations, as we're discussing these applications, as we're going around the region. While some people may have certain ideas, it doesn't mean those ideas are wrong. It's just that they're going to completely be respectful. Ideally, what we want out of this group is to get to this middle section or higher, is where you can trust the group. Maybe you're not from the Tracy Landing area, right? And but someone else is, and they're very passionate about the back of their hand. They know the back of their hand. So maybe sorry, French, I apologize. And I think original stuff. And but we can get on board to trust the group to move on with the decision, that is the consensus for the best moving forward. Really, really. The different types, some of the different types of changes that are going to be presented tonight, were discussed at the last meeting. The first is going to be the consistency change, where we match zoning to the specific land use designation that was approved through Plan 2040. This is what staff have been working on. Again, we'll kind of point these out as we go from community to community. The parcel line is kind of cleaning that up a little bit. What I call kind of adjusting a crooked frame where you can see the dust marks, which is cleaning that up a little bit. And then again, the open space, making the open space stronger, focusing on areas with environmental features. And then also the OPZ, and you all can create recommendations for certain areas. We are going to go from community to community tonight, showing different staff recommendations. I believe we have about 37. Most of them are actually in the high 20s are recommended to go to open space. So a lot of our recommendations are to go to open space. And you all can provide recommendations if there are certain areas you want to talk about. I know we talked about the Wastes Corner Village Center designation. That'll be part of the discussion if we have time in the meeting tonight. And then finally, the other type of zoning change, of zoning applications you've all received, you've all looked over, and we're going to discuss tonight as well. One note I want to make is some of the staff recommendations may require a land use change, which goes back to that previous slide of the consistency aspect. So if you agree with a staff, we're going to highlight the zoning aspects tonight. If you agree with the staff recommendation, we also want to let you know that that's essentially also agreeing with the land use change as well, because they have to. Is there any questions about any of that? Okay, great. Okay, so just to show you one more time, what the plan is going to look like, what the final charts are going to look like. We're going to have each change number ID in region 8. This is a region 9 example. We're going to have a change number for region 8. Maybe David's bill 01. And then I'll have the identifiers of the property. Whatever the staff recommendation was, is going to be at the end. Whatever you all's recommendation will be underneath the SAC recommended zoning, and then your justification. So we're listening. If you all agree with a staff recommendation or note it, you all can make different, we'll note why you all have decided to move forward with that path as well. So your all's decisions and ideas and direction is going to be represented here. And it's as the first line notes, it's okay not to have a recommendation. We don't have to sit here for 8 hours talking about one property. If you all can't reach a recommendation, that's perfectly okay. Or if you guys simply just don't want to have a stance on the property, that's fine too. We'll note that. We'll move on. So finally, this slide's in here twice now and at the very end, the next steps. I just really wanted to highlight two things on this. First and foremost, tonight is obviously the big zoning meeting. If we need an additional meeting, we have May 10th set up, ready to go. It's Saturday morning from, I think, 8:30 to 1. So don't feel rushed. Really want to emphasize that. Do not feel we have to get through everything tonight. However, it is what you guys make. It could be finished in an hour or 10 hours. It's really up to you, right? So, again, but as staff, my job and Jesse's job is to make sure you all are comfortable with this process. Make sure you guys have felt that you've been able to really provide your input. And we're here as long as it takes. Ideally, we're not talking about one property for 10 hours, but we do want to make sure that the conversations are efficient, moving forward, and being productive. And as long as they're continuing in that process, we'll meet as many times as you guys want. The other thing I want to point out here is the public review. Tonight, if we finish everything tonight, we'll work on wrapping everything up for a public review tool. And we anticipate this to go live in sometime in June, as of now. And this is where the public will provide comments, provide their input, provide their thoughts. We're gonna have a final meeting in August. So any comments we receive, any input we get, we're gonna send to you all. And you all will be able to review that. And when we get to that final August meeting, if there's a comment that was really eye-opening to you, do you want to revisit a certain property that we discussed tonight or the next meeting or whatever, we can absolutely revisit it and discuss it there too. So we're just trying to add to the transparency of this, really make sure that all sides are seen and been able to discuss. And one other thing too, just for a very important note, is the recommendations you all create, recommendations for staff, is just a recommendation. It's not law, it's not a final decision. That all lines up with the county council. They're the ones that have the final say. They're the ones that are going to vote on it likely this time next year. So if you get really upset with something, just remember, we all are just providing recommendation. It's the county council who has the final decision. So zoning applications. Before I kick it off for a second, I want to say one thing really quick. So tonight, there's a lot of different zoning applications that talk about wanting to subdivide for more homes or for family or for whatever, right? I know there were a handful of those applications. The big thing that they need now is, someone asked me, why can't they subdivide now? Why do they need the zone change? As their zoning stands now, for at least ones I can think of off the top of my head, they don't meet the acreage requirements. So the RLD is one house for every 5 acres. So in order to have 2 houses, you need 10 acres here, and then so on and so on. If they only have about 6 acres where they want to do 2 houses, they can't, which is probably why they applied for a zoning change. So in order to get a subdivision, they would need to up their zoning designation. So I know there was a few of those comments about some subdivision, and again, people talk to me about that. I just want that to be aware too, if you guys are aware of the acreage requirements. I'd be happy to answer your questions when we go through these about that. But if not, did you have something to say?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So I wanted to speak for a group that's not represented tonight, and I'm going to ask of everybody. The group that's not here represented tonight are the adjacent property owners for some of these proposals. And unfortunately, they may not find out about any of this ever, or they may find out about it when the sign gets posted on the property in question. A lot of us live down here because we like the peace and quiet. We're accustomed to our neighborhood, we're accustomed to our neighbors, and we kind of expect the status quo to maintain. The problem with allowing for subdivisions that aren't there, when people are looking for a house, they look at the surrounding neighborhoods, they look at what's there. Hell, I do criminal background checks on my neighbors. Most people don't go that far. You'll find out about this why in a second. So, you don't expect, if you do your due diligence, and you know that the properties next to you are zoned in a certain way where they're not going to be subdivided, you don't expect those to be subdivided. So if they do get subdivided, what's the worst that can happen? I'm living it. All of a sudden you have a house within 100 feet of your residence. Your view is ruined. They have loud biker parties once a month. They're violating pretty much every county, ordinance on the books, sending rough your property. They ruined your quality of life, they lowered your property value, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, you can call the county and go for the enforcement, but then you risk the ill will with the neighbors, et cetera. So what I'd like for you to do as we go through these, and I think the mapping tool was great because you can see how the surrounding properties were laid out. Just think of yourself as owning one of those surrounding properties and how this could potentially change your life if it's approved. And it could be for the better. I mean, you might have a commercial business, somebody who wants commercial who's already next to commercial, and that would help both businesses out. I mean, it could work out either way, but it's just something that I'd like everybody to have.
Thank you.
Eric, I got a question. You said a lot of these people don't need the acreages, was your comment?
They don't meet.
Yeah, right. But a lot of them, I noticed when I was going through, because I went through each one individually, don't already meet the acreages to begin with. And when I say that, I mean, there's many houses that they're here, each of them have 3 acres, 4 acres, 2 acres, but they're all RA. And
Right.
technically RA is 1 for 25. So, well, yeah, I guess, but like, my point is, they already don't need the acreage. So why would we say, hey, you don't need the acreage for the new one? Like, you need the acreage for the old one either, but we're gonna hold. I'm playing the devil's advocate. Yeah.
So all of areas throughout the whole county, not just region 8 and region 9, that have smaller lot sizes than result. And so if you look at it in a way, it is kind of a weird instance. And I think we touched on it a couple meetings ago, we talked about how maybe some of those lots predate the zoning code, stuff of that nature. But I think maybe to your point, if there's a stance that you all as a group want to take for these specific communities, that may, because you are a smaller lot, but so are your neighbors, and you want to potentially give them the opportunity to do so, you're welcome to take that stance. That's totally your
And
prerogative.
again, I'm not saying I want you,
Sure.
I'm playing the devil's advocate role here, so, how does that, how does that really?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, again, totally up to you how you all decide.
Sounds good, thank you.
I just had a quick question, because I saw this, you just mentioned it, but I actually took a picture of it, because I was riding by on River Road, and it was like Winslow Farm, and there, it says, it's a 52.99 acre farm, and they want to put 57 lots in there. And I just rode by this like the other day, and I was in the car with my mom, and I was like, slow down, we're talking about this, but I, like, how did something like that get approved on River Road, which is, and it's like on this side of Governor's Bridge Road, so I don't know if it's technically in this region or not, but it would be within the vicinity of Davidsonville.
Sure, I would have to look, I don't do that type of.
Sure, but like, we're talking about this RA, all this.
But so a lot of owners, there are opportunities for owners to potentially apply, for, I forget the exact reason, but basically,
A non-conforming use.
not for use, but there's also ways, they don't have to necessarily meet the codes, the rules of the code.
In plat.
Yeah.
So it's in.
They bribe somebody.
Been like developed, so that came up. Are we getting new houses in here when our schools are overcrowded? We're having this issue.
My husband owns. Oh, really? Huh. But.
Is that zoned RA? I'm sorry, is that zoned RA?
They said it was plat, it's been
It's
platted.
been platted like that, and it's in tier 3 or 2.
So if it's
So
going through
it's
3, it's
like-
most likely.
It's teed up, it's been teed up.
No.
So that's fine, but it's been interesting.
Looks like,
You know, it is, it's north of 214 on Reba.
yeah.
But
It is in Davidsonville School District, which is causing like the ruckus of
Where
redistricting.
So what I was thinking is, people, applicants can file a lot of insurance. That's the often way that sometimes if they get approved, it's all, they aren't guaranteed this through the qualification. Or essentially, it's kind of like a strength. They can get away, get around some regulations. That's a code. So if you disagree with that, that's something to reach out to the council members about. So there's one that, they are the ones that control the code, and what, can and can't be done.
Was that a sign for a public hearing? Yeah,
It says for information, contact planning and zoning.
Okay.
So now, it's interesting, 'cause they actually just redid like coming off of Governor's Bridge, they just redid that whole kind of area, like the road and they put sidewalks in. Off of that Cambrian. Road. Yeah. I don't know.
Eric, I have one more question. As far as the process goes, you said the county council will vote on this, but yet they go through it like we will one at a time, or does it go, here's what the SAC recommends, and they say yes or no, or maybe, do they go through these individually as well?
So what we do is staff, that's a great question. So everything that you guys are working on, everything that we're writing in the plan, that we will send you the plan document for your final, like, Google in August, when that's finished. Everything that you all agree on, everything that happens, through this process, we send it to them and like, hey, take a look at this, we're gonna vote on this. I can tell you, we have worked with Ms. Ledbetter, who is the Region 8 representative, and she's very good. She will go through each and every line item. She's very respectful of the process. So the work you guys are doing is, and I'm speaking from the Region 9 experience we just finished up. She's very respectful of the process. She understands what you guys are doing, and she's very appreciative. So if she has questions, she'll reach out to staff and tell her the conversations. We'll show her these meeting recordings, meeting notes. She will do her homework and come up with her response to the council.
And I do just want to add to that, so for transparency, so the process is you all get first cut. And then in the fall, there will be another public, like over the summer, everything goes out to the public with the zoning applications and any recommendations thus far. Then in the fall, it will go to the planning advisory board. They're another advisory committee. They are provided all the materials, staff gives them a briefing. We meet with them several times at public meetings where there is an opportunity for public comment, both in person and through written comments. And then we go to the county council where we have several meetings there. We do behind the scenes meetings with council members if they're open to it and they're interested in hearing from us. And there's once again, public comment aspects. So there's multiple opportunities for public comment. For Steve's point, if people find out about this along the way, there's multiple bodies that review. It's just the county council is the final decision maker.
Any other questions or? So moving on, we're gonna start with Friendship and we'll work our way north, through the region and kind of go piece by piece. We will go super slow at first, just to make sure everyone's comfortable. The meetings, and then if you guys want to maybe, either speed it up or not speed it up, understand how it's going to flow a little easier. I think it's going to be easier than longer than go on. One thing I do want to mention is try to keep the conversation on track regarding zoning. I know we can really talk about a lot of things with these applications in these areas, but for the purpose of tonight is zoning discussion. So the first, in Friendship, we did have one application. And staff recommended was the RA to maintain the current RA zoning. And from the Survey Monkey results you all agreed with, we received 12 of 15 members respond to the Survey Monkey for Friendship. And it was a 100% yes, you guys agree with staff recommendation to maintain the RA zone. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna show a map and we're gonna kind of go through any potential staff recommendations in the area. Well, if you guys want to talk about the zoning application, you guys are more than welcome to. But what we're gonna do here is essentially, we have two staff recommendations in Friendship. And one of which is going to open space. And then the other one is actually going from C1 to R1. And that is just a 0.1 acre change. So I'll let Jesse kind of drive around if you want.
So right now where the cursor is, this is the application, like the owner application for a zoning change. So where the cursor is that site. We are currently looking at the adopted zoning with, this is just the adopted zoning for this area currently. So as you can see, the site is currently zoned RA. The surrounding properties are, that's that light green shade is RA. That's that 1 per 20 acres. That dark green shade is open space. And so you can just kind of see what immediately surrounds the property. Right here, I believe this is Old Solomon's Island Road, just for some navigation. And we are far south in the county right now, y'all. So did any of you guys have any comments or questions or further discussion about this site?
How many acres is it? I'm just,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I believe it's about 4.6 acres.
And they wanna just take 0.1 and make it RA.
I don't have the application in front of me right now. I know that they requested R1 zoning, so that would be a change from one house per 20 acres to a change for one house per acre. And keep in mind, like I said, I don't have this exact application in front of me right now. I could pull it up if y'all need the details. But remember, if you change the zoning, it doesn't necessarily limit, if they meet all requirements in terms of the development requirements, if they've got the acreage for it and the zoning that permits it, they can do it.
So the request is they purchased the land back in the eighties. And we're told they could subdivide it back then, that's why they purchased it. Now they want to build their kids a house on it. And that's why they want to go to R1.
So this goes back to the point we talked about earlier, is a lot of these applications you'll see again tonight, want to something, they just simply can't turn the zone. So they've had to apply to the next level up. If this is RA, the ROD, 1.5, if it's 4.6 acre lot, then you have to go over 1 even more, right? Because the 4.6 is still smaller than it would be 10 acres with 2 houses.
I'm looking at his application and he's noting that like there are houses on 0.5 acres and 2 acres near me. So is this just a case of not understanding that even though those acres are small, they're still RA? And like he's just kind of not under.
Yeah, so, yeah, if you look at the map up in the center, where it's the density, that's basically the old Friendship Town Center, which was platted before the county had a charter of the zoning code. And those are small, old 19th century houses, in many cases, and it's. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So then moving on, if you want to go to the,
Is that area around them all house, is that, you don't know that, is that all houses also, or is it farmland or?
There's some farms, there's a nursery, Friendship Trees is down there, I think they have like a large plot on the left. But it's mostly residential.
All right, so I'm zooming out a little bit so we can see more of the Friendship and Owings community. So this purple line on the map, that's our region plan boundary line. So everything to the east is Region 9, that's already been adopted by council. Everything to the west that's colored in is Region 8. And so I've also got turned on right now the staff recommendations. So I'm going to turn off the adopted zoning for a second, just to really highlight some of those staff recommendations. So you can see that there's a couple of them in this area. We're also looking at staff recommendations and consistency changes. So consistency is for consistency with the adopted plan land use versus a staff recommendation, which is the plan land use doesn't match. We're going to have to change that as well if it ends up going forward. But for the most part, you can see that these changes are 2 shades of green, the same 2 shades we've been looking at, with that light green shade being RA zoning and the dark green shade being OS. The dark green patches that are kind of scattered, those are some platted communities. And so when a community is platted, they set aside open space or recreation areas. And sometimes on their plat, which is a legal document, they say that the recreation area or the open space has to be held for the community in perpetuity, and that it cannot be developed with a residence. So that's more in line with our open space zoning, which does not permit residential development. And so changing the zoning to open space would help us with forecasts when we're looking at what is the zoning, what can be developed. If there's 10 acres that are on the plat, they say that they can't be a house, it's set aside for the community to enjoy as a recreation area. That's more in line with our OS zoning and what's permitted under that OS zoning. And so it helps us for our forecast to know that 10 acres won't be developed. And so, if we move forward with this recommendation, we will send the property owner a letter letting them know that they've been recommended for this, giving them staff's number, they can call us, letting them know about future comment opportunities. Because like we said, this is not a done deal. This is us opening the door to them for just that line of communication about it. But that's primarily those big changes up in there. And then the remaining recommendations in this area are primarily those consistency changes where we're fixing it to match the lot lines, which is, you know, I can zoom in on any of these if you'd like, but I'm willing to bet that for things like these two down here, it's most likely to match a lot line. And then the last one that I want to draw y'all's attention to is in this little corner of Friendship. So this is zone 2 and we're on Friendship Road. This is a staff recommendation where the property is currently split zoned between RA and C1 because it's right next to some commercial properties. But on the State Department of Assessment and Taxation's website, it lists that the use of the property is residential. You know, we all know you got to do a lot of verifying, but just when I typed in the address into Google, it didn't tell me there was a residence there. So we're going to send them a letter and say, hey, we're recommending your property go from being split zoned with some C1 to being entirely residential. And they'll get that letter and hopefully they'll give us some feedback.
So that's, I mean, that's right down the street from me, and you've got a post office there, and you've got, okay, so that's next to the post office.
That's
okay,
correct.
On the other side.
Yep, and I'm turning on the adopted zoning just so it'll show.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'm not aware that there's anything commercial there. There's commercial on the other side. I'm not sure where the residents come from, but there may be.
There is, it's hidden by it's hidden by some bushes on the front.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And everything you just said is what we
Yeah.
verify the best of our abilities.
Yeah.
Which is why
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I think next to the post office. Okay.
So does it make sense to make it residential and not let it be commercial? That's right next to other.
That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, what I will tell you is that there are a couple of commercial establishments in that little block there. One of them is a little Italian restaurant, which has not been doing well. It's changed ownership several times. And the other one is right next to the post office. In fact, they share the same building. I think that's some sort of like shipping company or something. It seems to be, you know, what I will say is they are what's there right now is very. There's a little thrift shop, an antique shop, I could say, on the other side of the post office as well as the other commercial establishment there. And it's really low volume. They basically try to capture the traffic that's going down the beaches on 261. Probably do. In fact, most of them are open on the weekends because that's when they do most of their business. So, you know, doing something like commercial there was not totally out of character of that little area. But, you know, they're kind of, somebody would have to have a reason for that.
So what is the application asking?
So this is an application.
not an application.
This is the staff recommendation.
So, right now I've got on, like, right now we've got on the adopted zoning and then my recommendation on top of it. So once I find the right layer in just a second, we'll see just the adopted zoning. So you can see that the red is the parcel lines and you can see that this property is split. But like I said, on the State Department of Assessment and Taxations, it says that it's a residence. The Office of Planning and Zoning is trying to avoid arbitrary split zones, and I couldn't find evidence that there's currently a business there. So we're recommending RA for the entire property, but if y'all think, you know,
Yeah, I
otherwise.
mean, I've been living down there for, 30 years and there's never been a business there. Now, there could have been, 50 years ago, I don't know, but, yeah.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about that particular property. I lived across the street. I owned the house across the street. That's the one I bought from the county a long time ago when that other
Yeah.
group came in the antique house. Okay, so that property is a residential property. It has a stone fence all the way around it to provide privacy from the commercial properties next door. And every neighbor that I ever had while I was there didn't intend to do anything with it. I don't know about who's there today, but it would be highly unusual to imagine that they really take good care of their yard. It's beautiful. That they would want to do something commercial, but again, it's their right to make comments. So, it makes sense. Now, it looks to me like it changes on three parcels. Are you?
Yeah, so there's just some more consistency changes around there. So right now I've turned back on the staff recommendations. So as you can see, we've just cleaned up the zoning line to those parcel boundaries. Essentially, forgive me if I've said this before, but when you house GIS in an online data system, sometimes there can be change elsewhere in the county, like such as a subdivision, and it ripples throughout the GIS. And so the parcel lines and the zoning become unsnapped together, essentially, like they snap apart. So you can just see here that some of those lines just don't quite match up. So to the north of the property we're talking about, over here, down here. So those are just those consistency changes to clean up the zoning, and they will receive a letter with similar content, letting them know to contact staff if they have any comments or questions.
And at times, so for this example, the staff recommendation on this property that we talked about, if we send them a letter saying, hey, we're recommending the removal of your commercial, making it all RA, they can come back and say, no, I won't. And then we'll let you guys, if they tell us for the SAC process, we will tell you.
So this kind of thing has been like a proactive exercise on the staff part, just to look to clean up.
Yes, so again,
This is,
Yeah, the other, I guess, consideration is if you all recommend commercial and their property taxes.
they may not, do they even know their?
Right.
likely no, but I mean, I don't know, the owner, but likely it is, because in other regions that we worked on, a lot of people call us like, what are you talking about? I don't have commercial.
Yeah,
And it is because of those wandering lines that Jesse kind of mentioned a minute ago.
yeah, my guess is it may have been, that way before they built Route 2 through. That would be my best guess on it.
So are you guys, is there consensus with the staff recommendation for the RA, or is there more discussion you guys want to have?
Also, I think we forgot to introduce Jen. I'm so sorry. Jen is with us from the zoning administration. Because like I told you guys last time, there's times when I don't know all the zoning answers. Jen knows most of the zoning answers. So yeah,
So is it appropriate that we take a vote, or do we just say, does anybody oppose?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's somebody opposed to this, can we move on? So then, okay, moving on to, and that kind of wraps up the friendship holdings area, unless there's a specific area you don't want to talk to.
Is there any more comment? Anybody have anything they want to say, or?
I want to say something. If there's any more administrative ones, can we just skip it and go with what you recommend?
You absolutely can. It's
Wastes a lot of time.
It's just to be transparent and show it.
Okay.
But we can be, again, this is what you guys are making. If you want to be a little quicker, like I said, we're gonna be slow the first time just to kind of get head wrap on everything. But if you want to be a little more efficient, we can absolutely kind of.
I think they should pick up the pace. I can't recommend that we skip it because I think everybody here is essentially putting their stamp on it in a way. So I think they should at least breeze through it, and if we have any questions to ask, otherwise, let's let.
If anybody knows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the last one, I was gonna say, I think what I would like is to wait and see what the owner thinks.
Yeah.
If they didn't know about it, then those what you guys suggest.
Yeah, so what we'll do, if you guys are okay with this, move on with what staff recommended, but we'll make a note that if we hear from them, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah, because we still have more time. And public, once you have it online, public can comment on everything.
Quick question, are we gonna go, would it be more efficient to go through the applications and then come back and go through the staff proactive things?
So, ideally, we're gonna do.
Or you want to do by reason?
We'll go by community, or we can do however you guys want. I assume community by community would be easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right.
all right. So it sounds like everyone agrees with what staff presented on Friendship, and we are on to Lothian.
So I do want to mention, I apologize. So everything, we had application 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Application 5, the applicant withdrew before it got to you all. Application 6, we put it on the drive, but we did not put it on the Survey Monkey itself. So while you had the opportunity to review the information, there was no place for you to provide your comment. But so we will talk about this one tonight just to make sure we're all.
Yeah. Anyone have anything specific about Lothian 1, 2, 3, or 4, seeing that everyone agreed? Do we want to pull them up on the map and discuss them further, or do we just want to jump to Lothian 6?
I have a question about Loki 3.
Okay,
In the drive, there's a 3A and 3B.
yes.
So do we need to talk about A and B, or that's why? there's two different applications, but we only have questions for one.
Great question. So they are technically one application. The A and B is because, as you can see on the map, we have like those, like when I was showing it to you, I had to toggle on the layers, what's changing. And so when you get to see them, when everyone gets to see them for the public, there's gonna be like a box around it and then like information on it. And so from a GIS perspective, if a property has two different request, like zoning requests, so for example, in this case, but all of this property is currently zoned RA, but they requested C1 on one property and R1, or C1 on one side of it and R1 on another side. Because of that, they have to be split into an A and a B, so they have different pop-ups. But they're the same applications. Or they were submitted by the same.
For part 6, I printed off the fact sheet if anyone would like that to have in front of them. If you do, raise your hand. All right, if you just want to pass it around. Then, if you want.
All right, so I've got Lothian 6 up on the screen. Right now, we're just looking at the staff recommendation because that's how I can find them essentially. But it's these two properties right here. We are on Maryland 4, and really just north of the county boundary to the south. So really far down on Maryland 4. My nearest crossroads are Lower Pendle Road or Fisher Station Road to the south. Just for helping you guys to orient yourselves.
Thanks.
And then I'm gonna turn on the zoning adopted just so we can see what's around it. So as you can see, the property is currently zoned RA. Much of the surrounding area is currently zoned RA. There's some OS in the corner kind of being cut off by the navigation tools. And as you can see on the fact sheet, they requested RLD. I'll give you guys a second to read.
One of the things I want to note with this, discussing it, there are a couple of adjacent properties, one wants a full-scale subdivision. It kind of, just reading the zoning request reason, great location fronting on Route 4. What? We all know that particular corridor is a traffic problem. There are a lot of crashes around that Lower Pendle, Talbot, and up to 258. And there are already, I don't know if anybody's noticed, there was a, if anybody's been by 258 lately, there's some signs up for a Stephanie Lane subdivision, which was a 4-lot subdivision approved like 10 years ago, which they're putting in, and they're putting in a terrible road line. Getting
Yeah.
They're going to do some accidents there.
Yeah.
Because people are going to try to turn left and turn left there. But I just, with everything that's going on in that quarter, it's a hot quarter because it's eating accessible to places import in the city. But really the road design is just a nightmare there right
So why didn't this go in the survey? Oh.
Yeah, so again, we gave you the information ahead of time. It should have been from the survey monkey, but it wasn't. Probably because 5 threw me off first. That's what I'll think.
I'm looking at this, the application doesn't necessarily make sense because it's 1 house per 5 acres is RLD. When they say, we want to turn this into a 3-acre house.
They probably didn't know it was 5.
So, well, okay, so to that, we were looking at the other one there. There are some conservation easements on those properties. And so if you saw it platted out, I don't know if they did a plat on that one, like a road plat, but in a lot of these cases, the lots that we follow, they'll still stick with the 1 per 5 acres, but the actual lot for the residents might be smaller because there's a conservation easement that makes up part of that larger acreage.
There's a conservation easement then there.
Well, why isn't it showing up there if there's conservation?
How do you know that?
It's just,
I think it's just an example of like why they might be asking, why they might say in their justification 3 acres.
does this one have?
I know there is.
So that's a great question also. So the conservation plan land use is really for platted floodplains or other properties that are conservation in perpetuity. Forest conservation easement can be amended, and so just because a property has a forest conservation easement doesn't necessarily mean that it has conservation plan land use on it.
So again, staff's recommendation is to maintain the R. Sorry. Is it fair to say there's a consensus with that moving forward?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so then that you guys all seem to agree with the rest of the, of course, yeah.
The county line, if you look to the south there, you can blow it up back. You can tell where you enter California County, as density increases, bingo. They're right on the county line.
This is the county line right here to the south, and it's very close to the county.
Those are.
They can only do one extra house.
Yes,
Right.
everything in this,
Well,
like,
it's going to take you to,
Is that the 3 to 5 that they're speaking of?
it could be that they, they're mostly developed.
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
first-
so they have success.
They're that, limited family.
So then they.
District was
Okay.
different limitations compared to this one.
Are we reconsidering this one or did our vote count?
No.
Anyone else?
Let's move on.
So then for staff recommendations, if there's any you all want to specifically talk about, I can kind of give a brief overview. There were 5, 3 of which the staff is recommending to go to open space. One is a recommendation to RA. And then one is also a 0.5 acre staff recommendation to R1 to match the rest of the property, I believe.
Can we see that one?
Which is that?
It's 5045 Solomon Island Drive.
All right, bear with me for a second, guys, I'm not.
No, it's not an application, it's a staff. So you have,
You know, remember.
so again, just.
Okay, yep. So this property, it's this one, the only R1 property in this area, that's that tan shade that's showing right now. This property was a 2006 administrative rezoning case. So what that means is that they went before the administrative hearings officer and they were granted a rezoning that way for R1 zoning. Keep in mind that through this process, we're, like I said, trying to remove arbitrary split zones. And sometime between 2006 and now, they had a parcel line readjustment. So in 2006, they got R1 on their entire property. Sometime between 2006 and now, they gained a little bit more land. And so our zoning recommendation is really just these edges of the property so that the zoning matches the entire property line. So you can see those faint tan shades up there now. That's just me filling, or us for our recommendation to fill in the gap so that the entire property be zoned R1, which is in line with that 2006 administrative hearings decision.
Just out of curiosity.
The property in total is,
Or 5 acres.
it's a little short.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I did that before I got the Katie's acreages.
Where's the circle in relation to the Lothian circle?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's just to the, west
Oh,
side.
Right past that commercial.
So again, this would have, in all other. If it would have been the smaller acreage number, it's likely this would have been one of those parcel line adjustment kind of things. But because it's a half an acre, it met above, it didn't meet the threshold that can be done administratively. So we had to do it through this process, which means we had to do a staff recommendation to make it up.
Is anybody opposed to that?
No,
Okay, let's move forward then.
Can I ask a question? Are we required to vote on any of these?
So we're kind of moving this consensus as we go through. So
No, are we required to vote on the staff recommendation?
oh, you don't have to, but we would suggest.
Do we do what we're required to do first and then?
But we're not required to do anything.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, to the votes that we actually need to vote on.
But we're not required to do any of it. So it's all the same, basically.
So on that note, this is going to get every staff recommendation is going to get a change number, just like a zoning application is getting a change number. Back to this, thank you. So regardless if it's the staff recommendation or a zoning application, there's going to be a section for SAC and staff.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to, but we would encourage you all to provide some kind of information to the bosses.
Okay.
I had a quick question on, what is that threshold for the land area where there's in this process for just,
It's super small, like, it's maybe 1,000, like, I don't know.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, it's very, very.
You know, I've got a back line dispute on my property, and it's, you know, and a lot of these, what a lot of people may not understand is, a lot of these plots were done decades and decades ago, and they weren't, they weren't done with the most formal process, so there are a lot of overlapping, there are even gaps of property lines there, and somebody gets a survey done, and they compare the surrounding plat maps, and it's like, oh, we got a little problem. You know, it's not that.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, I think we are through Lothian unless anyone had a specific question, comment. And we are on to Wason's Corner by my count. There were no applications for Wason's Corner, just one staff recommendation. It was a change to OS. It's a platted open space or recreation area, like I explained before. Any questions, comments?
And we'll come back and discuss the village center.
Sounds like we're on to Harwood.
So as Jessica Coleman said, this may save some time. There were 4 staff recommendations, all to open.
To what?
Open.
Oh, okay.
And so there were 2 zoning applications, one of which the group had already, according to Survey Monkey, came to 92% consensus in maintaining RA zoning. Harwood 1. One that we hadn't discussed. And so while Jessica pulled this up, this was this is an area, it's an application, and the owner requested C4 zoning. One of the reasons that staff didn't provide a recommendation, we wanted to discuss it, is because in previous conversations with the group and different topics we've heard potentially about more, not the need, but potentially a opportunity for different local commercial establishments. And this is one that we thought could be an opportunity, depending what the group thought. So we want to bring this up to you and see what you all thought, what ideas, suggestions, comments you may have about expansion of commercial in this area.
So was C4 the staff recommendation, or was that?
That's what they applied.
Is this the landscaping?
Yeah.
Yeah, now you reading through that thread, it seemed like there was some, you should say, do you really need C4 to run a landscaping business? Or?
That'd be a great job.
Can you orient us where,
Yes,
like, the
of
roads and
course.
stuff?
It's right before the, Harwood Road
Oh,
intersection, on the right-hand side where that stone, stone mason is.
Yep, where the cursor is currently, that's the high school, so we're going past the gas station,
Where the
past the
circle is, right?
intersection. There's not a circle right here, there's.
No, it's a
traffic
light,
light.
it's a light. yeah.
And then
Oh,
it's,
That circle,
that's where the
Yes,
circle
sorry,
is.
that
the
is
top.
the-
And the property, just for full transparency, it's this big one kind of shaped like a snail, and then the snail's head down here also.
And what do they want to change?
It is a stone
What if it-
landscaping business.
Yeah, I found the 1991 permit that allowed him to rent that.
So-
I found it by accident because he's on my road. Trust me, I'm confirm my neighbors.
So,
Sorry.
again, staff doesn't have a recommendation at this time. Again, we bring this up to you. One aspect that we discussed about this site is the odd take too. You're not, it's gonna limit its use potentially of what it can and can't do on the site if it were to be zone commercial. But again, talking about commercial in this area is something we wanted to bring up to you before staff finalize.
So that's back, it's back on a road, we're surrounded by residents.
Yeah.
It's not part of that commercial area. It's kind of
Right.
tucked away there and it's currently a stone operation.
And that, just to the south, that road that goes west, Holy House, that intersection.
Oh,
is
horrible.
a nightmare.
Now,
And don't forget the Royal Farms is going in there
Yeah.
next to the high school.
well, especially.
The pink is
commercial?
So yeah, so pink
So that's
is,
the Royal Farm, this is the Royal Farms where the arrow is.
so pink is C4, that's our highest intensity commercial. Green, the light green is the light green we've seen before. I think Mimi has a question.
Well, which one is their lot?
Their lot is the snail's back and head.
So if it stays,
I think it was that 2 parcels though.
It's considered one part, it's one tax.
Because the landscaping business is actually on the south end where you see the circle, and they have land on the north side, right?
So what was the application? What do they want to do? with it?
They want to
It's all
continue their,
open space.
Yeah.
Yeah. so I think that's a Jen's question. So, the landscaping business, is that like a permitted or conditional use in RA?
It is not allowed.
So if it goes to what the recommendation is, does that prohibit them from continuing their business or no?
It depends on what they have that's allowing them to currently operate, essentially. Correct. If they get the switch to C4, if they're like a non-conforming use certificate that carries with the land regardless of the zoning district. But if they're a conditional use under the RA, then they're meeting the conditions to do it under RA. If it's not permitted under C4.
I don't think they have a permit
Okay.
to do what they're doing. I'm not sure about their approval history. If they get changed to C4, they can put any business.
Yeah.
Well, no, my question is, if we go with staffing recommendation, will they have to discontinue their present business? Oh, so.
So that's,
So there is no staff recommendation yet,
yeah.
Oh, right,
we're just having to
Right, they could just sell, like, they could get a C4 and then be like.
and sell
I'm
it.
sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jen, did you say that if there's C4, they cannot do landscaping? I thought that's what I heard you say. But not nursery for C4.
Nurseries, no not from any commercial, and landscaping, no, but that's considered, they count that as a contractor shop and yard.
Yeah.
To get to the commercial and industrial. They don't specifically list it as a use.
Yeah, this sounds like.
So if it's not listed as a use, it's not allowed. But
So they could do it as a contractor yard essentially. So they could fall under that category, but they wouldn't be able to do nursery sales per se.
Well, which zoning is?
it's RA right now, right?
Yeah,
Which zoning is nursery sales?
What they're,
And what's
That's what
landscaping?
they said they wanted to do.
a conditional use under RA.
But it's not C4.
they have.
Well, then why would you change it to C4?
Right. just do-
There
Yeah,
is,
I mean,
so the reason staff wanted to discuss it with you all is because there is some C4 in the area, but it sounds like folks are leaning towards, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, leave it RA. That's what I'm hearing.
Cause you said it's already traffic, heavy traffic.
Yeah.
Right there.
I don't know, I'm just of the opinion, like, they wanna do landscaping. But if they apply for C4, they can't do landscaping. So why would we give them something they can't
They
do?
could do that with con-
It's a more intensive use, so
Mm.
if they become C4, they can do any C4.
Yeah, no.
It's more attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much more valuable does the property become if it goes to C4?
A lot.
A lot.
So it, like, as Jeff said, it sounds like there's consensus to maintain the current zoning.
Yes.
For this site, perfect, moving on. And that was it for Harwood, unless you guys want to talk about any of the staff recommendations I mentioned. all
Hold on.
the rest.
I'm
No,
just
they're all
reading the survey
space.
monkey thing. Someone said, someone said, no, the group needs to discuss this for 02. So who said that and why did you want to discuss it?
Well, we got 91%, so if no one, I mean, yes, they can bring it up, but.
I put that on a lot of them. I just want, I've never done this before, so I just wanted to understand.
I just wanted that person to
Process
say
it.
Well, then
Somebody
we're.
just sounds like, let's talk about
This sounds opportunity.
No, if 92% people go with it, it's fine.
Again, I don't want anyone to feel rushed. That's the most important thing about tonight is feeling comfortable with these discussions. And so if we are hesitant to move on, don't feel bad if you're the only person not raising your hand. This is the meeting to do that, and this is what you guys are here to do. So please don't feel rushed. If you do, grab me the side on our break and we can come back and I will take.
So. It sounds like we're ready to move on to Davidsonville unless anyone had any questions about Farwood. Oh, sorry, Edgewater, skipping a whole place.
So there were no staff recommendations for Edgewater. There was the one zoning application which, you all already, according to Survey Monkey, showed 83% in favor of maintaining the current zoning. Is there, do we want to discuss that or do we want to move on to?
Public use district.
Yeah, it's in the PUD.
Yeah.
The planned unit development.
Planning and development, yeah.
Development,
It is that.
So it's not even allowed.
uh,
Yeah, so the zoning category they applied for is not allowed in their current.
Solves that problem.
Yeah,
It
job
used
with people.
used to be a hot dog stand.
Oh.
So we're good to move on to Davidsonville.
Anybody?
So Dickinsonville, obviously, the largest geographic community in which Nate, obviously has a lot, we have 25 staff recs. For most of the 18 of the 25 are two open spaces. So there's a lot of open space there. There was one, that went to C1, but it was 0.6 acre. I don't have it on the top of my head, but I think it's very similar to the one we got up if you guys would like. And then there's also, a handful 6 that went from something to RA. Again, a lot of them are very small, like I'm looking at a couple, 0.1, 0.0 acres, 0.0 acres, 0.1 acre, 5 acres. Again, a lot of those kind of clean up too big for the threshold to the end. But we will happily show you all if you have any questions, but if not, we'll go right into.
We look at that in one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the C1 area is, it's the zoning line, it's the parcel boundary lines and the zoning, don't line up. So it's this property right here, we're on Maryland 450. One of our close intersections is Baldwin Ave, or it looks like, yeah. So this property, it has a zoning administration, or no, sorry, this one I believe is a, 2011 comprehensive zoning. It was rezoned to C1 on the entire property. Somewhere on the map, there was a change at one point in time and the parcel lines and the zoning lines became unsnapped together. And so this band right here on the property is currently zoned RA, and it's really just a staff cleanup. But because of the lines getting wonky, the planned land use was wonky in this area. So it wasn't just a consistency change. I had to go through and manually, do the stuff.
But it's
But-
not creating any new, it's just kind of, they already thought it was.
It's cleaning up what's there. So this is let me turn off the staff recommendation just so you can
Is
see it a
that
little
Fat
bit.
Boys?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I think that's Fat Boys Crab Shack.
Oh, no, I think that was a little part of that.
No, I think that's it right there.
So-
Langways.
So,
No, Langways is part of that, that's Fat Boys.
I'll take your word for it. So here you can see the adopted zoning and just how it doesn't quite go to that parcel line. This one also doesn't quite go to the parcel line, a couple over here. And so I'm gonna turn on the staff recommendations, just so you can see, we're just cleaning it up to match the parcel lines. Everyone will get a letter.
I know that's Fat Boys, yeah.
So then, if we're looking, so unless there's any more conversation on this one specifically. We'll go back to the presentation just for a second. We are gonna talk about this area more in depth here right now. But I wanted to start off by a couple things. You can skip this for a second. So this area, this is, I think, the 1, 2, and 3 potentially of the applications said will be discussed. Again, this is one of those areas that is essentially a transition area for the region, for the county. This is one of the 2 places in the region, I believe, that's growth tier 3 in region 8. Then what you're looking at here is the current zoning. So you see a lot of, you see this weird shape of tan, which is the R1 zone. That's here today already. That was an administrative hearing decision, I think about 15 years ago, give or take. So given that's the growth tier 3, and then I think it's planned sewer and water. This was an area we wanted to discuss. Again, staff does not have a recommendation on this. We wanted to bring it up. We actually went one step further as well. Within the yellow boundary, specifically, you can see the highlighted yellow. There were about 63 properties there. We mailed letters to those property owners wanting their input on potential changes. We heard back from 10. Of the 10 we heard, I think I have the result. There were a few different questions we asked. And some of the questions we asked is, what's the primary use of your property, right? 7 of the 10 responses, 7 of the 9 respondents to this question said they have a single family house. Your residential, there's a structure that is used as a residence, 7 of the 9. We asked, what's your goal for the future of the property? 4 people, which was the majority, said none, continue using my property as is. We also asked, how would you describe neighborhoods surrounding your property? We had 2 people reply suburban, 3 people reply rural, and then essentially 3 people replied mixed use. I say essentially, if 1 clicked mixed use, then the 2 others left comments that said mixed use. And then finally, we asked, would you support a change to R1 zoning in the area that is currently zoned RA in the south and is in this area? There were 5 options: absolutely no, maybe no, neutral, maybe yes, absolutely yes. 8 respondents, 5 said absolutely no, 3 said absolutely yes. So it's kind of almost 50-50. But again, so it's a conversation that, given this inconclusive data, as well as our understanding of the area and understanding of the SAC, we wanted to bring this up to you all. Have you guys had a discussion on this area? Ideally, you guys create a recommendation, and again, no recommendation of not reaching consensus is perfectly okay. But again, this is opportunity that you have.
2 quick things, if you don't mind. Could you please just relay again the
Sure.
colors, number 1 and number 2? Did you say the area that we're discussing now is in the tier 3?
Correct.
What does that mean?
So it's planned water and sewer at some point.
Correct. So essentially, tier 3 is planned water and sewer. Tier 4, Jesse mentioned earlier that there's in tier 4, there's a limit of 5 units, no matter how big your property is, or how big your subdivision is. What's not, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not,
Okay.
right, that's
Not
all.
currently, but it's
Is that Bell Branch Park on the right? Is that?
No, not yet. You have to go down farther to get to Belgrade.
The one.
Oh, no, wait, yeah, that is.
Bell Branch, right?
Yeah, that is, that's Belgrade.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was all that
Oh, wow.
space back there, yeah.
And so then the question was, can we go over some of the zoning districts?
Yeah.
So the tan shade at the top, the sand, like
Just
almost,
real quick, one second, just for everybody's reference, the fifth highway is what separates region 5 to the north, region 8 to the south. So while you may be able to provide input north if you want, this group and this team, we can't do anything with that. May 14th is the first zoning conversation for region 5. So if you have strong feelings in this area, I do believe the team had received a couple applications, and they've let me tell you all they are having a meeting. You can feel free to go there, provide the info during public comment as well. But so again, region 5 to the north, region 8.
yep. So this area in region 5, this sandy color, this is R5 zoning. That means about 5 houses per acre. I'm just, for the sake of time, I'm gonna stick to mostly what's down in here then. So in the area we're talking about, the light tan shade is R1 zoning. That's 1 house per acre. We're looking at adopted right now, guys, so that's already there. The RA is 1 per 20. The red lines, I don't know how well it comes across on the screen. Oh my goodness. These red lined areas, that's small business zoning. Keep in mind, small business is a zoning district that has many permitted uses. It does not mean mom and pop. It means that you meet the definition of small business under the zoning code. This pink shade is C1. And then dark green is open space. Purples are industrial. I can tell you the differences if you're really interested. And that C3 is commercial general. So commercial general, it's not the most intense. C4 would be the most intense. It's generally, shops. Could be big box stores.
Do we know, so the R1 zoning was adopted in 2015, do we know anything about the rationale behind that?
Yeah, so I think that was a comprehensive zoning, the 2011 GDP. I think it was a council amendment to the GDP, if I'm remembering correctly. Essentially, it wasn't what was put forward on the final recommendation from staff, but it was what council adopted.
Someone got it.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna switch apps to zoom in.
That's what the screen.
Is there an area you want me to, so right now we're looking at adopted zoning with staff over top, but I can turn anything off. This is the area, so here's 450.
Okay.
And then the yellow highlight, if it were on the screen, would go over to the commercial area, down to the industrial, down kind of this, that's must be like a creek or
It's
something,
a river, it's part of Pax River.
around over here. And then I think it went up, over, up, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Where's 424 on this?
Right up here,
Right, yeah, so I think the dark green is
Okay.
Bell Branch Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
So this tan is R1,
This one right here,
right, that's,
and so somebody owns that.
that's correct.
And that's the data.
Do we know how big that, I mean, I know.
Oh, it's very large. They were gonna put a whole property in there, but it got canceled. Like a subdivision.
So if you
Yeah,
make it
so-
R3, then,
No, so the
That's R1.
This is R1, so essentially we got some, just to give more backstory, guys. So we got the applications, they're up in this area where the cursor is, 1, 2, and then I think these 3 are all part of the same application.
There's one down here too.
Yes, there's one in, I think it's
The
this,
green, no, the green one.
this one, okay. So we got, a total of 4 applications, I believe, for the handful of properties there. And they're in between, as you can see, it's industrial and commercial over in this corner. And then there's that small business and some commercial over in this corner. And so they're in between, they got that R1 zoning on a handful of the properties, so the 2011 comprehensive zoning. And so this area has RA zoning on a good number of the properties, but it's kind of an area that may be in transition given the variety of different zoning districts adjacent to it, and especially how it's RA for a lot of those, but you know, RA next to industrial, next to commercial, next to C1, in between the two with the R1 coming in. Like I said, it could be an area in transition, so we just wanted to discuss it. We sent it out to the property owners, letting them know we wanted their feedback. Only heard back from 10 folks. We're just keeping y'all up to date.
I will tell you, I've struggled with this. Because 2 wrongs don't make a right, but on the other hand, at what point just throw it up and say, you've made too many mistakes, it's inevitable, you know? I mean, I feel for the property owners that are there, especially the ones that want to preserve it, but I think inevitably, you know, creative situation where it's hard to find things.
So there's a bigger problem here. So that defense highway is single lane each way.
Yeah.
It's already backed up.
Yeah.
Forever. The second problem here is right now in the school redistricting, this is a major area where they're gonna start shifting all these kids 20 miles away from Crofton High School to South River High School, because there's too many houses there. To change this to an R1 area, especially some of these other big ones that wanna go put 4 or 5 houses on these areas, will increase traffic immensely when it's already horrible, and then throw off the entire school area too. Like, so I'm vehemently opposed
There's,
to changing any of this area.
and there's signs on too, like, to,
To the west.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
So people get into that neighborhood how now from?
450, but if you think Route 3 is also a disaster too.
Yeah.
So putting more houses where they can only go on Defense Highway or Route 3 is not the answer.
Kind of a side comment. This is where I don't understand why the public, adequate public facilities ordinance doesn't have stronger teeth. I'll just throw that out there. We don't need to spend time on it, but I'm just throwing it.
So one other thing too, I've heard everything you said so far. Another thing you can do is, you all do, is if you think this is, not suitable for residential, but if you do believe maybe commercial, there could be recreation to do as well. Just because there's an application of something else, you may recommend something different, and we will let the property owner know of your recommendation, moving forward. So you have multiple options. You have an option to maintain the current zoning. You have an option not to provide it. You have an option to grant the requests of the applicant, or you have the option to provide something brand new that they haven't applied for. They may not like what you've applied for, they may not like your recommendation, and they'll let us know, we can have another conversation later, but that's all those options are on the table for this application as well as all the other applications.
Where's the application? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This long area here, they want to turn it into
I think,
mixed residential use,
so
which is gonna be.
I have.
That's
questions.
So this, so this square right here, it's about to get, oh, okay, it's where the cursor is. That one's the Davidsonville one. They're currently RA, they requested R2. It's right on, it fronts directly onto 450.
How many acres is that? Huh?
This property is. Ooh,
0.9 to go to R2,
does that even make a difference?
but yeah, they can put 2 houses on it.
we don't round up, so they can only put one house.
That's,
Yeah, but it has no houses now.
I don't know if it has a house. They could have a house.
yeah,
Okay, so there, that one is this one right here. Can I Move on to the next one? Okay, so then next is,
Do they want to put one?
missed ones? There's one, or no, they don't have one here. Okay, so then the next one is this long skinny one directly adjacent to the industrial. That would be Davidsonville 2A. So the long skinny one right next to the industrial, they requested MXDR. Then it's 3 properties. Directly behind the one that requested R2. Directly behind that one and directly next to it. They also requested MXDR, that's Davidsonville 2B.
What is that again? Can you go through that one more time? That zoning allows for what?
MXDR, so that's, I'm gonna kick it to Jen, I'm so sorry, Jen, because our mixed use just got updated, so MXDR is, when they applied, MXDR was, county council made, some amendments to the zoning code. MXDR is no longer a zoning district, there's a direct crosswalk to a new zoning district. MXDN, so can you give us some information on MXDN when you're ready? That information you want.
What is it?
What is it?
What can you do?
It's just it's basically one of the mixed use, it allows different things, it allows residential, it allows retail. Other commercial type uses like industrial.
Can I ask a question? On the other parcels, Dan, how do you access?
It's a road right there.
There's a road here, and then, so these, so that property fronts direct, this one,
Yeah.
another cursor on, fronts directly on Maryland 450, this one fronts directly on Maryland 450.
Yeah.
This road comes through here, and then these 3 properties, these ones on the back, most likely they have some kind of easement running through this property, or these 2 are owned together.
Through here.
Okay. Okay. And then I just want to point out one more before, while we're talking about all of them together. Davidsonville 3 is down, gee. Sorry, all good. Okay, so nothing. So Davidsonville 3 is down here.
Yeah.
And this one is currently RA and it's requesting R1.
They want to build more houses. they said.
But the tan to the left is R1 and the tan to the right is.
Everything else that's tan is currently adopted. We're primarily looking at the adopted zoning right now. I do have some of the staff recs on. I'm just gonna turn them off so we don't get confused. And just to make sure we're all clear that we're looking at the adopted zoning map. Okay? So that's why you're gonna see some imperfections. It's because it's what we're currently adopted is what we're looking at.
And there's some like natural features here. This isn't like this, like, it goes over. There's like a natural berm and everything else between the industrial and this neighborhood.
And that's-
Which is actually like a horse farm.
Very well, yeah. Of course.
That's a good point John made too, so. It's some things to keep in mind, some of these properties are bound by environmental constraints that don't necessarily let them develop every square inch of the property. We have to, adhere to environmental regulations, as well as setbacks, all coverages, there's a lot of regulations in the code of, make sure not every square inch of the property is covered. So just keep that in mind as we discuss it.
If you're interested, I found the section in the bill with the description of the MXDN. Neighborhood mixed use district is intended for mixed use development with a variety of residential dwelling types and a compact community with buildings up to 8 stories with a range of retail and employment uses primarily serving the surrounding community with a high level of pedestrian connectivity throughout the development. So it's basically the renamed version of MXDR, which was residential. That is not an
Real quick, you said pedestrian availability? There's no,
So sidewalks.
but there is none off Defense Highway there.
So one thing that we mentioned a few meetings ago too, is not necessarily get so bogged down in C1 versus C2 or this versus that one in the zoning category. Think about what the area, what you see in that area. Is it just broadly now, is it commercial, is it industrial, is it residential? Or, and then if it is one of those things, how intense is it? That's the question we want to, because as I think Jim here may be the most fluent in the zoning code. So we don't need to necessarily get into the nitty gritty of C1 versus C2 quite yet. We just need to understand what you all as a group think should be in this area in general. That makes sense.
What are the industrial uses there?
FedEx is that.
It's like a business park.
No, there's a
They-
bunch, of little- like, if you
they-
Google it, there's a bunch of little businesses.
FedEx is that big purple area right there, where everything is.
Yeah, so going back further, it is more like industrial park, that's probably the FedEx. But Jen is, correct, like right here along Maryland 450, there's a number of commercial businesses in this area. And I know we're focusing on this, western side of the area, but keep in mind on the east, there's also small business or commercial zoning there. A note about small business I don't think I've made tonight is that generally it's intended for properties that look like residences, but operate as businesses. So, you might say, oh, I've driven by, there's a house there. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is acting as a residence, because it's got that small business zoning. They could be operating a business.
Veterinary clinic.
Yeah, the vet clinic is there, and there's like a doctor's office in the house.
Business.
Yeah.
Is there a demand for more business in the area? But I would-
So, but we could recommend not mixed use, but if, like, we were talking about, R1 has been adopted in some area. So we could say like, oh, maybe a residential reason, but not so much the opportunity for up to 8-story building.
Yeah, I
You know,
think-
like, not a
I think
mixed use.
I agree what you're saying. It's like
Yeah.
the zoning that they're asking for doesn't feel like it fits, right? But it definitely doesn't, it shouldn't be RA anymore.
Right.
It's not fair to have that be RA when it's next to FedEx and there's a business over here and there's a business over there. And then you're looking at like 2B.
Yeah.
They were a horse farm and now they can't have horses because there's nowhere for them to put them. They can't get them on and off the road. So like, it's not safe. So like, it wouldn't be fair to be like, you gotta be RA because, we decided you're RA. But when you look at around, you look at everything near it is something different.
I guess my counterpoint to that would be, where do you draw the line?
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
the other
So
one,
like-
right? So like, where's the line?
What about south of the purple?
Yeah.
Do we make all that R1?
No,
And then, well, why not? If you're gonna make all.
I know,
this
that's what I'm
R1.
saying, is like, it's
Yeah.
difficult. It's like, I don't wanna say you can, but you can't,
Right.
but I also don't feel like it's fair.
Can I provide a little bit more context? So
Yes.
the area that staff drew, keep in mind it was around here, down, around and up. So, that was largely based off of platted communities and the growth tier. So there's a couple of platted communities in here. You can see, the cul-de-sac that a couple of them front on and over here. And I believe this area in here is all in growth tier 3 versus south of it and around it. Yep. Yep.
There's no
Okay.
public sewer there.
Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta navigate there on a different mapping app, so I might even have to refresh. I'm sorry about that. And is it helpful to have the zoning on? Does that help you guys
It is.
orient?
Yeah.
I think the overhead map's really helpful though, like a actual.
Necessary to recommend a rezoning the entire area if there's other people haven't requested zoning.
That's true also.
So, I mean, if we just stick with what the specific people who requested a zoning change and not talking about the entire area, it may be more,
Productive.
yeah.
Did they say
what they wanted to do or? No.
Well, each case is different. Like, they're all obviously in a cluster, but each one has a different goal in mind.
I just want to mix use.
So right now I've got on the zoning with the sewer service on as well. So I'm gonna hit my trusty identify tool. I'm pretty sure this is no public service.
That's right.
So it basically stops around the industrial area.
So yeah, the industrial area is on, it is probably planned or future. I can click on it if you're really interested. Everything that went from kind of opaque like it is up top to, or see-through like it is up top to like not see-through, that is that no public service is the no, not see-through area.
But they have public services on the north side of the Fence Highway where it's
Yeah.
the high density construction.
Yes,
high
and
density neighborhood.
potentially I could even show you where like sewer mains are if you're interested.
And is this an area that's planned to get public service?
If it's no public
There's
service,
no-
then it's not
Not
planned.
planned at all.
There are one is municipal zoning without sewer. I think it- How,
So John, what do you recommend, RA?
I recommend RA.
seems like there should maybe be a transition from like industrial to.
Or like they could do R1, like one of them does request R1.
But it's already.
But could they do like R?
Could they do R2?
Who you are? Oh, R2. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one. I keep thinking it's like 1 for 5,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
5 for 1. Got it.
Yeah.
Like, cause if they're I mean.
If you're not gonna do R1,
their neighbors
One,
Could go R-
it's R5, like the higher the numbers, but that's more houses per acre.
yes,
Not
R1
the
is
other
one house, 1 acre
But in this case,
Or
where
two.
the two cursor is,
per acre.
they
You
want
need a
more
point
one.
five.
Their
Yeah, it's like a
neighbors.
0.5.
We need a. point
Yeah.
five.
So
Do you
that, like, that
that?
light yellow is R1, right?
Well, this person's requesting our run.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Cursor.
I agree with the R1. I don't agree with this mixed use, because I just don't think I understand the point of it, but I do agree with R1. If it's touching other.
One to.
Yeah,
Okay, from 1 to 3. So 1, we're back up on Maryland 450. It's this property right here where the cursor is.
Currently, residents on that?
Yeah.
It looks like there's
Yeah,
residents. We
yeah.
can check SDAT.
So they wanna go from 1 residence
To
to
2.
2, but they only have 1 acre.
they don't even have one, they have 0.9.
Doesn't it look like there's two?
Hold on, are we? It might be, we're on. 0 to 1.
It could be a detached garage.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is.
or an ADU for that
It
matter,
could be.
right? So I don't think I understand the point of like, I mean, this, then you're talking about this like high density area. I would be okay with R1. But I don't think it makes much of a difference between RA and R1 for their lot size.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing, I know we're about to talk about Davisville 2, next. One thing to consider is if this one little square is zoned something that's different than RA or limited, that's simply not good planning practice.
Yeah.
And it's, could be considered spot zoning, which is illegal if it is considered spot. I'm not saying it is.
But these are applications for a change in the zoning, not like you guys were, this one can be this and this one can be that.
But it's still-
Part of the whole process.
Yeah, but they're trying to change zoning, really different.
And we have to look comprehensively in the area as well. So
Yeah.
Just keep all of that in mind, but again, even if, what I just said, you guys, we are all advisory. So we're not gonna get sued because we have, that's gonna be the off the ball and we'll deal with that, right? So, but we can at least provide a recommendation, we as in staff and we as in the SAC, can provide a recommendation regardless. Now, with more information that comes to the public review process, staff may change our recommendation, and we'll let you know if we get information that would affect that. But, again, just, if you're looking at this one little property, also think about the area as well, trying.
You can read the evaluation criteria at the bottom as well.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure the benefit unless they were planning on acquiring other properties around them that would then allow for
Yeah.
something, but 0.9, I don't understand the.
Well, it,
Can't put
Yeah.
a house, especially
Yeah.
with no sewer and no.
I think it could be just because it is a transitional neighborhood. You know, if potentially, you know, like the neighbors, the folks who, there were a couple right next to each other that applied. I'm sure y'all talk to your neighbors. Maybe somebody said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing because there's changes going on around us. It could be, you know, that.
I think we have to go with what they asked for. They asked for R2.
No,
We
no,
can
that's
make
fair. We can make
recommendations.
recommendations.
Yeah.
so we could say, okay, RA doesn't apply, but R1, we feel is fair. And that's not R2, but R1 is fine. It doesn't really change what they can do with
But
it.
yeah, it's the exact same thing. They
Yeah.
can do-
And don't
So
forget
why
that-
change it if they can't do anything?
So remind me, which of the other ones are requesting zoning changes?
The one directly next to it where the cursor is now, the one directly below it, and the one directly below that,
Okay.
and the one
Yeah.
directly next to it.
And they want it mixed use.
That is what they applied for, but you guys can offer recommendations if it doesn't seem like you guys are supportive of mixed use, but if there's R1 in the area, what have you.
And RLD is 1 for 5 acres.
That's perfect.
It would be interesting to know who owns those other properties.
So I think the one up there that's a residence, these 3 are the ones that said in their application that they're a horse farm, and I believe this one is a daycare.
It's a residence that is a date. It's a,
Well, and it's interesting because in 2A, they said, I'm joining my neighbors to the east, the
Yeah.
Cox families in their request for rezoning.
Yeah.
So it seems like, but that's a lot of, when you add up, I mean, that's 26 acres.
So the three,
Yeah, that'd be
the three parcels
Yeah.
is one
One per
property
lot, yeah.
essentially.
They applied together. They might be different tax IDs, but they're like owned by family. They applied together.
Because you're not
They
already.
just have three different parcels
That's correct.
in on the map, but it's really treated as.
I mean, I would say, I think in the most, I would suggest personally, like residential low density to have that 5 acres, just because knowing the traffic is bad, knowing the redistricting, like knowing all of these external factors to do more, we have the opportunity to slow that down. And I think that's what we kind of all agreed on as a committee. So that's something the most I would recommend, but I would personally, all right.
It says RA, but it's already below 20, so RLD to me seems like a compromise.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like, that's what I was saying earlier, like, every house down there is like 5 acres, but it's RA. So they're already below whatever it is anyway.
Properties too. Yeah.
Well, what do we do for number one? It's either keep it the same or give them the R2, just giving them R1.
You can, giving them R1 doesn't do anything, but think about the context of the neighborhood around it. So if you guys are gonna talk about 2A and 2B, and you're gonna potentially consider R1 for 2A and 2B, you could, if this square is right above 2A and 2B, R1 could, it might not do anything for them, but it could be reasonable given the context of the neighborhood.
What keeps you out of that like danger zone of the like tiny little redistricting, right? Or like changing zoning maps? What did you call it? I forgot.
What?
Yes, because then they're all touching and then they're touching something down there that's rezoned in a different.
We would have to consult the Office of Law, which don't worry, they look at everything anyway. So feel free to make your recommendation and we'll let you know if the Office of Law tells them.
I got it.
I've been made aware that there's an owner here in space. I don't know if they're online or in the room.
You're
In person. So if you are the owner, if you would like to say something, feel free to do so. You have 3 You have 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes.
My family land since 1922 and Cox Road winning. My brother and cousin own these parcels. This property is a children's daycare center that was given commercial, conditional use. In 1982, they built a purpose-specific building, a daycare center, the institution of Boston now. My brother and I, our families owned this parcel for 45 years. Grew up here, my dad grew up here, in the 1920s, his house where he grew up actually used to be right here. I used to be able to ride the horses out through where Arrowhead Estates, Arrowhead Estates went into the PUD. We got locked off, I can no longer ride my horses out there. The other thing that's happened is that if people are walking through our farm, they're regularly knocking our fences down. It's not safe to keep our horses there anymore, and we were so torn by trying to figure out what it is that we can do now. When, at the last minute zoning change in the comprehensive zoning last time, all of this went in as R1 with no public notice, with a fairly big outcry. We never even knew it was happening. And obviously that has started an absolute avalanche. And we just don't know what else to do anymore. We are looking at this, I'm not sure if you know, but my brother lives right here. It was a murder at FedEx about maybe 6 months ago. The noise from the industrial park is nonstop. Can't sleep with the windows open. And we're really to a point where we're trying to figure out what do we do? And obviously with what you're saying, there's a trickle down, small business working down, this got commercial, the business park's now completely developed out, right across the street with R5. What we're really seeing is with the proximity to Wall Chapel, to Route 3, what we're seeing is an opportunity for the growth that we know that the county does need an appropriate location. We have a major employment center here. And so while we first thought about possibly just asking for R1, because most of our lots, I think our lots obviously weren't RA, they're not 20 acres. We were thinking maybe just for a little bit more development potential so we can go find a place where I can safely keep my horses. But then we started looking at the realities of that business park.
And I don't think it's fair to any residential property to have to live next door to that, when you have an RA zone right next to industrial, which is where we landed on this mixed use idea. You know, the idea that could be a trickle down kind of, you know, more intensive residential. There are, you know, sidewalks do come right out of Crofton, they land on 450. The long-term plan, you know, we've got sidewalks down here now. It seems like the connectivity to the, you know, higher residential across the street, it did to us make sense. So that's really where we are. Honestly, if a mixed use residential doesn't make sense, an R1 and R2. But you know, that's obviously not RA, I think as you pointed out, and we're just really trying to figure out what to do because the trickle down has happened. We, you know, that this started 40 years ago and now we're just out of luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll speak to some of that. I live directly across the street from a property that's owned industrial, it's an active industrial operation, and I can help with noise issues. It is difficult when I sell my house, it's gonna be more difficult to do it because of that proximity. Now I would not recommend adding my particular area. I would have to apply for quick zoning because it's an isolated instance, but here you've got a lot of creep. And so, you know,
And
it is a difficult situation. I mean, I'm looking at my property value and I'm saying, oh, that's gonna lower the property value. And I hopefully you've appealed your assessment over the years. Anyway, you know, there's some credence to that. It's like, well, what else can you do with that property? Because is it really even fit for residential use?
Right, could it go right to commercial? Because you have commercial and light,
Or
and I know,
something else.
no one wants to talk about that, like, it's gonna happen, but it's coming from like both sides, and then community down from below.
Then if you do that, then the other neighbors that are bordering it now have to see.
Well, I know, that's the
Right,
problem.
as you keep moving it, then those neighbors are gonna be like, oh, well, now I need to go to commercial, and then you
Yeah.
keep moving it, you have to draw the line somewhere.
Are there any natural features to the south? Like,
So to the
to
south,
that
there's,
exact point, like if we do this here, and again, that creek
Yeah.
continues to
Yeah.
happen, and
So-
the other neighbors that wouldn't get a reason are now,
yeah,
you know, wet.
to the south, there's a
Could be an appropriate option, and I know we all have scared when we heard 8 stories, but it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It could be.
But it could
But
be,
it
that's
could
the
be.
problem, you
It could
can't,
be.
you can't
It could
limit that in the
You
zoning.
can't limit it.
for,
It can be up to, they can, yeah, they can't say, we'll allow you.
No,
No.
so for Emily's question, there are some natural features. There's a couple of floodplains, so it gets pretty thin, so you're gonna have to follow my cursor pretty closely, but around this subdivision, in between the existing R1 area and the south, there's a floodplain there, there's more floodplain here. There's not natural features in this gap between the big R1 piece and the park. But that's where, let me turn on the growth here real quick for y'all to look at. So now the colors on the map, it's not zoning, but growth tier. So that green is gonna be growth tier 4 versus the orange is growth tier 3. So like I said, that's how staff drew our boundary when we just sent out that survey to the 63 property owners. So whereas, like I said, there's the natural features along here. Here, there's not some, but that growth tier could potentially serve as a boundary. Okay, I'm gonna turn off growth tier so we can see that, what's the underlaying again. So now we're looking at zoning again, adopted zoning specifically.
So that isn't growth tier 3, and can you explain what growth tier 3 means for,
Yeah,
just in general?
so I'm not an expert on growth tier 3, so if anybody else wants to jump in, that's fine. But growth tier 4, essentially, that's when you are limited to no public water or sewer service. And so your subdivisions are limited to, like, no matter how many acres you have and what your zoning is, you can only cut that piece of property 5 times.
Okay,
Growth tier 3 does allow subdivisions beyond that, but they have more approval process. Essentially, they have to meet more criteria. For example, I believe the subdivision would have to be approved by the planning advisor, or they'd have to give an approval recommendation.
so this area down here that's R1 is in that growth tier 3.
That's correct.
So if a recommendation were to come, that's a higher zoning category than it is now, there are the additional steps that is different than the rest, a lot of the other parts. and different than Region 5, which is 2 feet away. So there are still some of those, code regulations that are gonna have to be met that other places in the county don't have to be.
So a stepping stone is a possibility of if they were, if we, and then of course, county council gets the last call on this to recommend RLD or R1, a stepping stone could be a small business after that, and then they could put businesses in those places at some point.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about small business. Because what you said is valid, like, the lower parcels, they don't sit on that busy road where you said that they're coming together, because you're in between FedEx and, what is it, Fat Boys? That's.
Yeah.
That's further down.
But it's still there.
Yeah, that's kind of tough right there, so, I don't know.
Small business was designed to be a transition to, more heavy commercial or industrial to residential.
So if people agreed on small business, would that allow them to do more than what they're currently doing now?
Small business doesn't change the
The zoning?
zone, does it?
No, small business is
Well, how many houses or whatever can you put on a small business?
it's not a house, it's just a type of, business they can operate. So
Yes. Typically, it's a house that's transitioned to be a business. So if you think about the vet clinic over here,
Right.
that building might have once been a house, but now it's the vet clinic.
So they can't build another structure, they just have to repurpose their home?
They can build another structure, that'd be subject to whatever's in the zoning code, which I'm not. an
How much
expert.
can you build on a small business?
So if there's one resident on a 10.6 acre property, for example, well,
Or
like
small
a small business zoning, does that allow you just to build multiple structures, or how does that work?
I think it would give it more
You can do
opportunity.
a business complex, you can, I mean, it allows a lot of different types of small business.
But is that lower than mixed use?
Not necessarily, because it still allows multi-family dwellings, apartments. And it allows things, well, it allows some of the things that are residential, but then some of the stuff that's the lower.
Small business, from my experience with the region plan process, I've done region 4, Spur Park, Pasadena, all the way down to Broadneck, and region 9, the east coast of South County. And typically, from my experience doing this the past couple of years, small businesses that I've come across are typical insurance salesmen, some minor offices, and I think we even saw a lawnmower. So it is more, granted, what Jen mentioned, you can potentially do more, but typically, small business is what it is smaller business.
What would staff recommend if like RA was just not a choice? Like, what would be your second?
Great question. We'll do it right tomorrow.
Option B, because
No, but that's a fair point. So
Yeah.
that's why we're here. We're here to learn from you all and get your input, get your ideas. And while I was joking, we'll deliver it tomorrow. We probably will. do it.
yeah,
Today. But we understand this area generally is some type of transition. And we know what we've heard from the property owner, as well as from some of you, that the RA doesn't necessarily make sense. And we understand, but we don't necessarily know what's perfect. And we want to hear from the public, we want to hear from you. That's why we sent out 63 letters ahead of time. We're really trying to get an opinion here. We're still mulling it over.
What about open space? Is that more?
So the open space would basically eliminate development that could be considered taking more private property.
It's not going the other way. Well, the person saying, you can't do anything with your property
Yeah.
anymore.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but.
You're just curious.
If the property owner wants to donate the land, yeah, sure. I don't think I don't see that.
So are we all in favor of the middle ground, or do we have to talk about this on the method?
The meeting.
Are we gonna do Macon?
So what was done for region 9, and I would encourage you all to really, and maybe I can take a break and maybe some come back. But I encourage you all to really try to come up with a recommendation for this area tonight, but if not, that's perfectly okay. Region 9, we had some of these issues as well, or some of these similarities as well, but we came back in our final meeting and we rediscussed those based on new information, public comments, stuff of that nature. So if we want to hold off a little bit to get the public comment and then revisit this, that's an option you guys fully have.
And how many more tonight How many, no, I'm saying, how many more do we have because there were several on the Davidsonville survey that said, we'll talk about
Oh,
it.
right.
Like, how many, just out of curiosity, that we can,
1, 2, and 3 were there, and then 18, 19, but then everything else, was overwhelmingly 90 or high percentage.
so there's not too much. Maybe we look at 18, 19, come back to
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of, keep the.
Good idea.
Yeah, can we eat? I'm like,
Getting hungry.
and I just wanna be like the person that just got up and walked away, but like.
We all were thinking.
It's like, oh, come
We
on.
take a 9-minute break, we come back at 7:30.
Yes.
Perfect.
You know?
I know.
There are 2 kinds of salad there. The vegetarian.
Why don't we do that?
audio.
So, before we start with going back to 1, 2, and 3, 18, and 19, do we want to discuss any of the ones that we have Survey Monkey consensus? Is there any ones that you want to brought up? No, okay, perfect. So
Oh, wait, are they here for one of those though?
They are here, but they already spoke. The horse farm folks, they already had their 3 minutes. So
9. They were 8,
So we-
8 and 9.
No, he's saying 18, 19.
Oh, from 1819, I don't know. Is anybody here from the vet clinic or next door to the vet clinic? Let me just check online, I
I don't
guess.
think,
But two people have spoke, it's up there.
yeah, they're on, up to date.
Well, I mean. Do we not want to because they're here or what?
Is a small business, is a small business the one, the doctor?
The dentist?
Yes, the dentist one, that is Davidsonville 8. Staff recommended small business for that one.
Oh, we did.
And they
Yes.
agreed,
Oh,
so it's done.
so he
Good.
didn't even come then.
You didn't need to come, but he didn't know that.
Oh, good, okay. And then the other one,
The other one that was discussed tonight, the Mount Airy Road, I believe that was Davidsonville 9.
and so
We're at 91%. Agreed to go, all right.
versus RLD,
Yeah, do you want me to pull up the area on the map?
yeah. I mean, they're here and talk about it.
That's the other one. It's this one. I think it would be Davidsonville 10. So it's this rectangle right off of Mount Airy Road. For place finding, we are north of 214 and west of what is
424.
424?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn on the adopted zoning layer. Hopefully it doesn't need to refresh. Oh, yeah, it doesn't need to refresh. I'll get there very quickly, guys.
But this is one that we had a general consensus on.
We did have a general consensus on, some folks just wanted to pull it out because the property owner is here tonight just to wrap it up with a bow, I guess. I gotta switch off some layers, so give me 1 second. I apologize for. All right, so I'm just gonna turn on adopted zoning, just so you can see the area around it. All right, so the property in question, once again, it is up right here in the middle, and trying to adopt zoning. So you've heard from these folks tonight. It's the horse farm folks, the first folks that spoke during public comment. They currently have RA zoning with a little bit of OS on the property. That's that dark green shade. They requested RLD zoning. The property's surrounded primarily by RA zoning with some OS zoning. So staff recommended maintaining the RA, and it did reach 91%, around 91% consensus. Did anyone have any other comments or questions on it?
All those other lots around it, how big are those lots?
I'm sure they vary in size, but just a random one I chose is approximately, oh, that's not right.
From 2 to 3. I had to abstain from this one because I live right.
2 to 3 acres?
Mine is 3.
So all the other lots around them are 2 to 3 acres.
Mhm.
They're asking me to go to 5 acre lots. And we're saying no.
There's no RLD established in the area. As you can see, it's really just RA and OS. So my best guess for how those 2 to 3 acre lots got there is the outdated zoning code. So there used to be different provisions in the zoning code that with the RA zoning, you could do things like family conveyance, or you could subdivide at a lower density. That's probably how those lots came to be. And so that's why staff would recommend maintaining the RA. I do see your point that they are larger than everyone.
Yeah, so I would like to change my vote. Because I don't see a problem with them doing RLD. So can we talk about it or?
We can talk about it. Go ahead.
I mean, having them here tonight obviously adds context to this. You look on the chart, it's obvious, it's easier to just say no, keep everything RA. But based on how everything else is zoned, you're adding 3 other houses potentially. I don't think that's a backbreaker. Anybody else?
How many acres is it again?
20,
There's a fairly good chunk of,
22 acres.
on that area. I'm just kind of curious.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
So they're trying to go from, RA and open space to RLD.
That's correct.
Well,
And
we
why-
can't change the open space. That's the United States.
No, that's-
No, it's open space zoning, it's different than, so
If it's environmentally protected, they have to meet the requirements of the environmental protections. If it's not environmentally protected and we change the open space, it's essentially the whole thing is, you can do anything in the orange zone.
But the open space stays open space.
If that's what you guys recommend.
So-
Staff's recommendation is make the whole thing orange.
Oh, I see.
Oh, to take away open space and make it our own.
Correct. The whole thing, right now, the staff recommendation is to make the whole thing orange, make it one consistent zone.
But why don't we do that for everything? Why?
There-
Take the open space away from that?
no, so it is recommended on other properties. So here you can see the staff recommendations. So most likely these are platted floodplains back in here, so that's why they're maintaining their OS. Or the property is over 20% OS, or it has mapped environmental features on our environmental features maps that are more accurate than the zoning there.
So that would be subdivided into 4.
Yeah,
could be.
If essentially if it's zone,
Which is bigger than everything else there.
I definitely want to talk about it, that'd be fun.
I think this is like the really kind of definition of a slippery slope. In Davidsonville, where people move there for the rural character. You need to understand what's zoned around you. When you purchase the property, Mount Airy Road. That's definitely not the entirety of Mount Airy Road, because there's a lot of other larger parcels on Mount Airy, but also on 424. And this is one of the main reasons that I wanted to be a part of this group. Because, and I respect the request, but I think, this is an erosion that's very, very dangerous.
How many acres is the open space?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Because it's 22.6 total. How much is open space?
Give me one second, I gotta find it on the other map.
There's a little creek that runs through there. Each branch.
King Branch?
Yeah.
Run through it.
can I just ask about what you just said? You said you have to, you don't want to allow it there because you don't want to allow the creek. Is that what you just said?
I just think it's a dangerous precedent in an area that is otherwise all totally protected by RA zoning.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Well, yeah, I guess my thing is either we allow creep or we don't allow creep, but we can't, like, either we have a policy for the district or, whatever you want to call it, or a non-policy for the district. We can't say, well, in this part of the district, we allow creep, but in the other part of the district, we don't allow creep. Does that make sense?
And keep in mind, there's a second application that we're not discussing. Not more, because we also came to agreement on the survey monkey.
I did a rough calculation, it's around 6.5 acres of open space.
That's 30%, basically.
Yeah.
Of the property.
So it would change if we, is there any change?
6.
Unless
So the
we recommend
recommendation is to change
leaving.
the whole thing to RA, no more open space.
unless we made a different recommendation.
So that'd be like
and
15.
Preserve the
That goes to the,
We're a little bit too scared, right? No, the other direction. Yeah, that's, I think. And again, keep in mind that a lot of these smaller parcels were done on the previous zoning laws.
Right.
And, you know, when the zoning law was changed, it was changed that way for a reason. You know, especially the family paying small, but, yeah, how many families will still ever live without some of the parcels?
for the OS portion that folks are talking about, so, keep in mind that the Office of Planning and Zoning is trying to avoid arbitrary split zones. The OS zoning doesn't necessarily follow environmental features as, it's a little antiquated and outdated. So the reason for staff's recommendation to remove the OS, partially because, you know, they applied. And so in that application, we figure they're interested in some kind of change. But also, you know, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have environmental features there, just because it's OS.
But you're not saying specifically for that property, you're saying generally speaking, because there is a creek there. apparently.
There is a creek there. I don't have, I mean, I can turn on some layers if you guys are interested in seeing them, but I don't know how much time.
One thing, because we do have a lot of data still to go through, we can continue talking about this again. I know you guys feel comfortable about the conversation. I don't want to rush anything. Well, we can also wait and revisit this after public comment.
Yeah.
And that's, so the public comment will be able to see which properties apply for zoning changes, what the recommendations are, and what was potentially could be. And any comments submitted, we send to you all. On this one, on anyone we discussed, and anyone in dates, and everything. So keep that in mind, while you discuss this one.
And someone mentioned there is another, application in Davidsonville, right around here. I believe it's this property
Yeah.
here that also applied.
Yeah, so
To
that's
do
what
what?
I'm saying, we can't.
They also applied for our,
Is there any conversation, or, a recommendation you want to provide? Ways.
Unless anyone else has a big shift, I think that most of us are still in agreement with the vote that we already did on this one.
Yeah, I feel like there was so many applications in general with the same request that it's like, we just have to choose a decision and be like, you're all the same. We have to be consistent in that choice.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not, I think, you know, we're still on a learning process and going through this. So we might say, okay, we need to revisit this at some point, like you said, after the public comment period.
Yeah. And only because everything around it, everything besides open space is our thing. If there were other places that were like, okay, I'm this, I'm that, I'd be like, okay, maybe this is more of a conversation. But
I have a question not specific to this property, but in general, with RA, which does not have sewer. So even if it doesn't get changed, it still has to work, right?
Yeah.
So somebody could be told, oh yes, you're allowed to have 5 houses. But if it doesn't hurt, they can't have.
Right.
Can you explain, sorry, how something can be zoned RA and only be on 1 acre?
Again, it goes back to either old outdated zoning codes or old outdated regulations, among other old things that have changed. But,
So then it could be updated. And whatever the plans were along the way, the regions basically said, you know, no more of that. We want to make sure that RA is 1 for 20. When we saw, you know, people that were here doing things at that time saw the creek and saw the extensive development happening and the lack of preservation of the natural resources of the area. So at some point that, what, do you know what year that was when they did that? Yeah.
well, 1952 is.
There was-
the zoning
there's another one.
update.
Yeah.
The update that, I don't know when the update happened.
there's about once every decade.
Yeah, but there was a conscious choice made by the area. Do you know Hamilton when it was? When they switched to RA? Okay, I kind of
So
remember
they
that.
just threw down and
During my
said,
age.
everything is RA from here on out.
It
No,
was,
so
it was
when-
already RA, it just was 1 for 20 versus either no regulation whatsoever. Restriction, I should say, on how many houses per whatever plat of land. At some point, they changed it, and I don't know the whole history, but I do remember when it was changed for the region because of the loss of natural resources in the area.
The minimum lot size for RA is 40,000 square feet.
So they're legal lots, but even though they're smaller than 1/20, it prohibits in the future them subdividing further.
So then, to Melinda's point, Sally, there was a consensus Bill with the initial, to bring up the, results. So we'll move on, but if there's comments, you guys want to bring it back up at the next August meeting after public review, we can bring it up.
And we still have the option to say, we really want to meet again, if anybody really does.
Yeah, I think we practice, go over everything on this quickly.
And then,
So then I'm gonna take us to Davidsonville 18 and 19, if that sounds good to people.
would y'all like the data sheet for them as well?
All right, so these properties are right next to each other. The cursor is currently on Davidsonville 18. And across this easement here is Davidsonville 19. Davidsonville 18 currently operates as a veterinary clinic. I'm gonna turn on the adopted zoning for the area. Correct, so, currently it is zoned RA. Remember, it's operating as a veterinary clinic. Davidson,
It's got a special exception.
most likely, yeah. I think they have a very.
What, yeah, can you-
Wasn't there?
Was
Yeah.
there? No, no, oh, no. Oh, no, it was a special. Very close to rendition.
It has that like big elephant. Yeah.
So we are very close to the county border with Prince George. Our closest intersect, we're on, Central Avenue. Our closest intersection is really Patuxent River Road. Okay, we're in between Patuxent River Road and the county boundary.
And that's renditions over there. Great part.
Yeah. So it's a, veterinary clinic. They are operating legally. I think it's a special exception. The property next door across the easement is, a residence. It is owned by someone associated with the veterinary clinic, I believe. So they kind of, they filed applications separately, but they reference each other a little bit. And so the veterinary clinic itself requested C3 zoning. Their reasoning for requesting C3 zoning is to expand their kenneling. I believe that kenneling is only permitted in C4 zoning, the most intense commercial zoning district.
I don't believe that's true.
No?
Yeah. No, there's one right down here. Yeah, Dogwood Acres.
So you can get a special exception to operate, other times. So that's the one thing I want to get to. So you can operate a veterinary clinic in RA if you have 3 acres. The site is shy of 3 acres.
But this is not the veterinary clinic, that's the separate one. The one that says they want a dog kennel is a separate one, right?
They're 2 separate,
Okay.
Yeah. They're both shy of 3 acres. They're just right next to each
But they want to. But they're like trying to expand the animal hospital to include 4. That's what I'm trying to understand, right?
other. Yes.
Yeah, so I briefly spoke with the applicant about this, over the phone, about a month ago, I believe. His concern, if I remember correctly, that they do want to expand the current use. They have no interest in selling, they want to expand what they have. And a lot of it is the concern of setbacks and lot coverage related to, the kenneling board.
In the application, it says, I need to subdivide off the lumberyard. Where's the lumberyard?
This property here is lumber.
Oh, so that access road is down to the other.
Oh, yeah, I always got a lumberyard at RA. I mean, isn't that commercial?
No lumber.
It says lumberyard.
Is it still working?
I have no idea. I'm just reading. what it
Yeah, I
says.
see the
That's
sign.
the section except for the lumber. So where's the section?
So
that-
why don't I pull it up on this
They're
one so you
talking
guys can
about.
see a little bit.
Is there?
Is there some legislation before the council now to consider veterinary clinics? To provide a little bit more leniency to consider veterinary clinics in rural anywhere that.
Yeah, it's legislation to allow a large animal veterinary hospital on an existing farm that probably already has an existing barn.
It's larger.
It's large
and
animal.
this is
This is not,
Not.
it doesn't apply to this.
So
Martin Hills, I mean,
It's probably there. We don't know where it is for, but it's legislation for the whole county.
So here's the lumberyard operation. It's on this parcel and this parcel, I believe, which is just to the south of the veterinary clinic and the neighboring property.
So I think
The,
we see it, is that yeah, is that right, is that a road in?
there is,
Yeah.
yeah, so the easement is in between, but you're correct. They use some kind of road that goes through the residential property to access.
That's what he wants to section off.
Yes,
So he wants to section off the entrance for the lumber.
So why wouldn't they just do a plot amendment?
that's a great question. So, it's technically, these two are owned by two separate owners, but
Okay.
they know each other. If they were to somehow reconfigure this subdivision, that occurred, they would, and combine these two lots, they would have the 3 acres necessary to get the conditional use to operate a veterinary clinic with boarding.
Can you just?
Well, they like make a plot amendment.
Can you do that?
That's correct. They're in the RA, because in RA you can do like a board kenneling as, yes.
They're just offering an alternative,
Yeah.
and like if C3 is not, or C3 and C4 are not an option, like why wouldn't they just
So
plot amendment and then they
to
can get,
clarify, C3 is not an option because you can't kennel in C3.
right?
You can kennel in C4.
What about small business? But that's not.
You cannot kennel in C4 or in small business.
So they've requested C3 for kenneling.
That's correct, but they can't kennel in C3. I don't think they knew this.
Okay, so,
So really, if we recommend anything to get them what they want, we have to recommend C4.
Or they'd have
Or,
to
oh, wait.
get.
Right.
Or get a variance, because
Okay.
But that's not guaranteed. It's a process.
So remind me, what's this division between the two properties?
this is a paper easement, because they're really accessing the lumberyard through this road that you can see.
One of these people owns the lumberyard?
No, because this is the residence, this is the vet, they're accessing the lumberyard through the
Right.
residence lot. And so they're saying that they need to come up with some other agreement so that the driveway for the lumberyard isn't through their
So if
property.
they don't get the agreement with the lumber yard person, then it doesn't really matter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it,
Yeah, you're saying that if
like,
they,
the guy whoever owns the lumberyard says, no, I want my easement, even though I don't use it. Then now we just have two C4 properties that are like separate, like,
if you recommended rezoning them, they're.
Can you zoom out again?
right, but they're not, like, how do they get to like combine their acreage, I guess is what I'm
You
saying.
can do a merger with request.
Oh, but that would, okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of this is.
That's the only entrance to the lumber.
okay,
Well, they'd have to go through.
right.
Nothing is a.
It's just like a long.
They can access the lumberyard.
so essentially, if we bring it back to the table here, so we can discuss this clearly. The lot on the left is which application?
That is Davidson
19.
Yeah.
And they're asking for C4 in order to need to subdivide off the lumberyard entrance and replace the old construction trailer with a freestanding garage. I don't understand what that has to do with C4.
I think somewhere else in there, they mentioned knowing the veterinary clinic and wanting to.
On the other application.
Yeah, and again, speaking with the applicant, I do believe he said they plan to use that property for their business, for their veterinary business. So if they had C4 on that's what the kennel would go in C4 for the C3 for an expansion of their operating.
So the animal hospital is currently on the left,
Right.
on the right. The animal hospital is currently on the right, which is
Yeah,
19.
there's a little barn or something that looks like that. If you look at Google Maps,
Mhm.
directly see
Why are they
Directly over there.
using the existing easement to access the lumberyard? I
They need
mean,
to send their homework back.
Yeah.
They need to redo the application.
Maybe Eric, can you give us a better, I'm a little bit confused about the process. Can you just do a quick overview of exactly what they're trying to achieve and how?
Yeah, I don't know much more than what's in front of you. I don't have a good phone call. But again, so right now, this is where the bed,
Okay,
this is where it's my understanding, they do procedures, surgeries, whatever, that kind of stuff. They want to expand that, and in order to expand that without the fear of lot coverage or setback issues, they claim they need C3. They want C4 over here, they want to expand more kenneling over here. So they have kenneling and have, the expansion of the surgeries and waivers, stuff like that. That's my understanding. Could be wrong, but that's, that was informed.
Are you allowed to expand through that easement? I mean, how do you do that?
So, again, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is if the easement, if they merge these lots together, they can replat and essentially remove that easement. Or move it somewhere,
Where the road actually is?
potentially, if that's okay.
yeah, because they still, somehow that lumberyard has to have legal access. Well, I guess what my question is, why aren't they using the existing
It could be
platted
that
access?
the lumberyard operation might predate the paper easement.
Okay.
So it might be that they had, like, it might have all been, because this was a subdivision, there's like 5 lots in this existing subdivision. So it could be that the lumberyard was operating and this is the driveway and they drew up the plats and then sold them off, or sorry, the lot. And then sold them.
I guess what I'm getting at is and I'm not sure I totally understand this yet either, but if the problem is the existing access that the lumberyard uses, and I'm not sure that's the problem, but if it is, the solution's already there in that they've got to use them.
that's not the problem. They essentially, it sounds to me like what Eric just said, is they want to merge the properties potentially, or if they don't merge them, that they have adequate commercial zoning to do what they want to do.
But wait, we're trying to solve their problem, and I think we're trying to vote on what we're gonna give them, and we're not gonna give them C4, right? So we just put this to bed and say, no, keep it the way it is, or, because they can do what they want in RA.
So why wouldn't you give them, I'm just saying, why wouldn't you give them C4?
Because there's no other C4 in the area.
Also, the
Well, not only that, we don't want,
19 doesn't
Yeah.
really say anything about the in-law. Like,
yeah, this is,
except that they've expressed an interest, but does this person understand that this isn't giving them the ability to subdivide off the lumberyard? Like, that's a different
yeah, he,
process.
So to George's point, what we can do is I say we, I mean, you can either, make the recommendation to maintain current zoning. And then again, if there's comments, send them to you, you guys can revisit it if you want, or again, provide no recommendation because you want more information. That's an option too. That's what.
I think George makes a good point.
Yeah.
They can still do their business, doesn't change if they're, like, they have the variance already, so I think it makes sense to keep it RA considering what's around.
Yeah, and in the thing, they're saying that lot 1 is already commercial. There's no commercial.
they don't know what they're talking about, I'm
They
sorry.
wrote these backwards. It's not-
What's confusing
It's just a lumberyard.
how would one make their boarding on the other?
They're both associated with the vegetable center. Like, I think it's privately owned residents, but I think they
Yeah.
know each other, like they're neighbors. They know.
Does anybody disagree with RA at this moment in time? Okay. Thank you.
So, all right, and then moving on, and again, if there's comments, more information presented, we can pass it on. And then back to, 1, 2, and 3.
I was gonna say the fire station.
Yes, we'll do that. So there is one area, before we get back to the hot topic of the night. In the same general area, there is an area that's currently zoned, I believe it's RA.
Yes.
Zone RA, but it's the fire station.
People who want us hold the meeting here, that's the people.
So, we might just wanna make sure I get the right.
So, to get everybody oriented, we're back up at Maryland 450 Defense Highway. Now, instead of being closer to the county boundary, we are directly on 424. If you guys recall that small business area that was to the side, now we're in the thick of it. So here's the small business area, here's the county park, and this one lot is RA, that is the fire station. So it's zoned RA, it operates as a fire station,
County owned.
it's county owned, and then it's directly next to small business and then open space behind it. So we just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. As it is the only lot in this line that is RA.
So it's county owned.
Why does that matter?
Because if we're thinking if the fire station were to ever move, because that has been floated around before, what use do you want to see here in the future?
Open space.
Yeah, open space for RA.
County land.
Well, I mean, they have the open space, it's already a building.
Yeah, why not small bills, business, that's already on a building. That's functional.
Yeah, but if it's moved, you could knock it down and make Bell Branch Park bigger. Or make it a Bell Branch Park parking lot.
So it sounds like the consensus was to maintain the RA zone.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, well,
What?
what could you build there?
Well, so eventually this property was to be sold from the county. I know that if property owned by the county is sold, it's a whole process, it's a very big deal. So but if it were to ever be sold, what would you want it to be? And the question is, because of what Justin mentioned, it's surrounded by small business, but obviously there is a park next to it. And I believe in the walk and roll plan, there was a plan to connect a multimodal infrastructure to the park on the north. Would more small business in this little section make sense, or would you want to keep it RA for a home?
I don't think.
And I know that's all small business, like you said, but those are all residential homes right there. It's just zone small business, but there's actually no small business. So what is it?
Yeah, there's a big parking on right next to it, so.
It's paving and
not-
seal coating, paving and seal coating company there.
Yes, I couldn't see it.
Right there? No, I
Right next to the fire station, yeah.
Yeah, let me find it on the one that's kind of see-through, so we can all be.
How many acres is it?
Oh,
There's some big radios.
It's county property, so the thing with county owned property, it doesn't matter the zoning, the county can essentially do it. They're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So, and it's literally, there's one, and I think a volunteer one in region 4, I think it's, small business or C1.
Okay. Is that? That property before they're gonna get fired.
This is the Anne Arundel County Fire Station.
Right.
This is the Arundel Volunteer Fire Department. This is not a business.
Oh, it's a training center.
Yeah, so that's like mislabeled. That's not that's part of the fire station or fire company, whatever you want to call
It also says capital paving and seal coating also on the.
It's like an acupuncture place,
Yeah.
and like a.
it. Because that
daycare,
building,
maybe
that
like
where the
that.
arrow is, that's where we wanted to hold the meeting. Part of the fire station.
I don't realistically see a house like a home ever going
No.
there. Just
Yeah.
to see-
I think if you're immediately abutting open space and the fact that, you know, our parks and so forth can get so choked up. You're always looking for additional recreational space and or frankly, parking available to support the park. I would like to see it go to open space.
And the building could stay there as something to
Yeah.
bathrooms or.
It could be a nice entrance.
Snack bar.
So,
Precious stand.
based on the conversation we had with Region 9, you guys can recommend whatever you like, but it's very unlikely that the staff would recommend a down zone to open space, because open space would remove any type of development.
Yeah. I think it stays on. That's my vote.
I don't know, we were all right. I don't think it makes.
Because again, why are we trying to hedge that stuff? Oh, in the future, we may get rid of this.
Well, that's the point of the whole.
Leave it alone.
Comprehensively looking at all the
Yeah.
zoning from Region 8. So we wanted to bring this up to you, see what you thought the future of this area should and could be.
I mean, does open space include amenities to support a park, like a parking lot or a bathroom? a
Yeah, the
restaurant,
Bell Branch, which is open space, has all that.
Or a concession stand or something?
I believe so.
Well,
not very
still- I mean,
Mine, but-
it should be open.
County sells it.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's sold with this. So essentially, if we made it commercial, the county would get more from the sale theoretically,
Theoretically.
which would lower our tax burden, but it would also clog our streets up. I mean, it's, you know. Slippery slope, but,
What were you gonna say?
It's not conveniently aligned to support the park, and the park already has that stuff in it, like bathrooms and parking lots.
There is a lot of overflow in that park, when there's a lot of games.
I mean, I can't see you parking there and walking to a game.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They park on the street right now.
Yeah.
I would be concerned with that Bell Branch intersection, you know, you have that flag right there right now. And I just, if you put a commercial
That's through
operation
the fire
there.
station. That's
Yeah,
not.
right, yeah, it's for the fire station, but you know, if you were to, if you're just thinking about that area, if you put it commercial, that could be a problem, with Bell Branch further.
That road's already
Yes, all right.
it backs up, the traffic backs up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, yeah, northbound.
All right.
So RA,
Yeah.
Sounds to me like,
Alright.
does anybody disagree?
I mean, I maintain open space.
But we can't downgrade it.
Yeah.
It's not an option, we said.
Oh, it's
well,
not-
when you guys.
We have, they're not gonna do it.
It won't be recommended.
Yeah,
It won't make
nobody
it
will
through.
take it.
What do you think?
I don't know why, but doesn't make sense.
You think it should be small business?
No,
Oh.
open space. I don't know why you wouldn't grab open space.
Because it's not for sale, there's a building.
I know it's a county building, so when the county moves the fire department, the county could just plant some trees there.
I mean, that's a county park, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So technically, the county would have the option of taking the property and put it in the parkland anyway. So,
Yeah.
so it, you know, I mean, zoning it as open space would kind of force that, but I'm keeping it as RA, that's gonna limit its uses anyway. What are the odds that the county sells that for a homeowner? I mean, you know, somebody would have to kill the residents there unless they allow them to live in a just a fire station.
Is there a plan to sell and remove or move?
Oh, you just planted that.
No,
That's true.
whatever, but, you know, nothing done.
Would it make sense to vote open space for like do an open space vote and do an RA vote and we throw it over, so.
So basically, the group might be willing to recommend open space, even though it's not gonna go past this group, but we think that just makes a statement and or we leave it the same, as kind of between the two things that we're saying. Is that what I'm hearing?
And you would need 2/3 to be an official resolution. So,
Leave it RA.
Leave it,
Oh, are we voting?
Well, I think we're just, I
Okay.
don't think we have 2/3. Yeah, I don't think we have 2/3. No, that's, I get that it's concept, like, I agree, but I'm also like,
So are we at a point where we can move forward with RA or do we
Sure.
need to, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, RA. Any opposed?
And we are back to Davidsonville, 1, 2, 3.
So is this it? This is the last?
This is the last section.
Okay,
And then we do have the quick, discussion of the license.
perfect.
Back on the, Jess, can you show us number 3, because that one seems to be of the 3, maybe the easiest to do.
Yep, just give me 1 second. And as we look at all these, you guys have the sheets, it has the addresses, right? I'm gonna turn on the addressing there, just so as we're looking around, you can maybe line it up a little bit easier in your, for yourselves. By the address points, so. The applicant property for Davidsonville 3 was 1605 Folly Place, so it's currently zoned RA, they're seeking R1. It's in between some R1 properties, that's correct, in a different subdivision.
So I'm reading their case for it, they can already build an ADU if they want. So they can build a second house on that property. They just can't be separate, they can't sell it, it has to be part of it. So they have 4 acres now, they want to go to R1, which would then enable them to put 4 houses.
Yeah, that's my problem, like, if they wanna go to R1, that's potential for 4 houses.
potential, but it is septic and well, because.
No,
of
no,
the-
I know, but then. Why would you try for R1? Because everybody else is R1?
Yeah,
You're not gonna try for it because you wanna build something.
Yeah, I agree with that. So could.
I don't know, they're flanked by R1.
Or go to R2, Cause then that's, oh no, I'm sorry, that's worse. Okay. Okay.
It was 1605.
And it's
There's a
literally
house there now.
flanked by R1 on both sides.
But the south is already.
Yeah.
There's a different subdivision.
And there is, that's the natural peak, that's kind of the,
There's a floodplain in
Yeah.
between.
that's kind of what I'm trying to.
Yeah, so I don't know how many, the likelihood of being able to build 4 houses on that property is very small. Just based on having floodplain down there, I don't know the topography, but I imagine it's not flat.
Is there,
So it'd have to perk.
sorry, is there a big tax difference between R1 and RA, like, to benefit, like, I don't. 'cause I
Yeah,
can
the
see
property
the
becomes
switch.
more valuable.
So what we, is get, call us not specific, but typically, the difference between, one to another like that is minimal.
Okay, so yeah, I think this is all right. I think it was a mistake to get those other properties in.
Yes.
We should like rectify that right now.
Yes.
Sorry.
And one thing, I think that's a good point to make, so this area, while the R1 has been here only for about 15 years. I believe the Crockett Small Area Financial done in the early 2000s, notified this, or all this area as a transition. And one thing that we can do as part of what you all are doing as recommendation, essentially as part of the plan, is whatever you recommend, if you recommend that area that is a mistake, quote unquote, that can be represented in a way that this basically, that's what you believe.
Yeah.
And alternatively, you can also say, this is an area that needs to be fixed.
I think my only concern is like, when you're going up Davidsonville Road, there's the giant Mac church on the right, but to the left, there are a lot of farms still, and that line. You know, we can see them to 27, 29, yada, yada, to the right. I know it's all the way over here, but kind of, you guys have talked, like creeping in a lot, and I do think that's the interesting, point, because what if then some of the lots underneath the side, I don't know what the size of those lots are, but I think.
So what we heard earlier, I think, was that area was designated by the group like us to be RA, but it got changed by the county council. And I think what I heard was staff didn't recommend that it go beyond RA, but then it went beyond RA with the county council process. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So the staff even recommended last week, that's.
Yeah, there was no staff recommendation.
I just think it's too much creep.
I do wonder if they know that they can build an ADU, but maybe they don't even understand know that option is already available.
That might not be their plan. Their plan might be to subdivide and get a second lot out of this thing.
Because remember, so we can age in place with a relative living next door.
Yeah, but that's what I'm gonna say too, if I wanna subdivide and sell.
You decide to sell the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, but keep in mind, we did have the speakers that were talking about the sound from that area just right over there, and it's like, it's not far from this lot. So I don't know how many people are really gonna get all that interested in buying a lot where they're gonna hear FedEx trucks all day.
In that area, you don't hear the FedEx trucks. Down in this area. Where that house is and below in the 3100 and all that.
Does anybody not want it to be RA?
I mean, my preference is that it gets to match what's on each side of it. And I know that's not the popular opinion, but it's just like everybody else has done it.
There
So
is
why
a
not?
part, I don't, 1607, it shows up on Google Maps, there's another house there. There's a house there, and a house there, and a house there, I don't know what.
Do we know why it was excluded in 2015 or whatever?
Yeah.
So for a council amendment, I believe you have to apply to the council to get it, or at least this round, that's the.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so for example, for you guys, like for this round of comprehensive zoning, once it gets to the council, they can offer, like if somebody applies, then they can request whatever they do, like they do at this process. But if the council is amending it, they can really only choose properties that have applied. It's hard to do.
So they might not have applied during that.
That's correct. It's hard to do a property that didn't apply. They have to find the person to ask them to put a sign in the yard, et cetera.
My biggest thing is we have constantly said with every other person that has come in tonight. We want to avoid creep, we want to keep it rural. But now all of a sudden we're saying something different. like,
Well, in all those other instances, there was no lots touching them with a different designation. They were all RA. And we're like, all right, fine. There's nothing in that vicinity that is a different zone. So let's stop. But this one does have the argument where there are other lots already designated to that. And I get it, like there's a whole community below it, south of it, that is not. They're all RA. And so it's a touchy one.
I mean, I think you can view it as an anomaly that never could happen.
yeah,
Has not, yeah, in some ways it has not. Built out, but it really probably will happen.
But I think keeping it RA, it doesn't prevent them from building a secondary home on the property for family. So,
So it kind of sounds like, well, there is an idea for R1, RA takes it
for 1605.
for 6.
Yeah.
Anybody disagree?
And then moving up to 1 and 2, please. Now that our comments are full. What are some thoughts?
so would number 1 even be eligible for an R2 or no? Because of a lot of people.
It would be eligible, and again, so it's something to consider. I'd almost recommend, and this is totally up to the group, I'd almost recommend talking about the other ones first, and then talk.
Yeah, I guess, so like you said, we don't wanna have copies, right? So like, if we agree to that one, 1627, is that the number, or whatever that long one is, right? Yeah. You'll have RA on this side of it, you'll have RA on that side of it, and then you'll have this thing in the middle. Okay, now you have to chop them again. Am I right?
Yeah, if that is a different zone, that would be correct.
Because 1637, 1631, 1629 would be RA.
I think one thing that's important to remember is there is a lot of opportunity for different businesses on RA, just looking at what we've seen tonight. So just because we are not still can't find another way to accommodate their desire to have maybe more business and then also a whole like more separation from that industrial center.
Yeah.
But for 2 and B, if the mixed use is too scary to everybody, it could become an area where you put 4 or 5 houses, single family. That way, the property owners
So
can do
if
something
you
with
did
it.
like RLD and,
RLD
yeah,
or,
like 5,
or R,
which would be
or we go up,
similar to what you had in the south.
it gives them some options.
One thing we did here tonight was about the sound industrial park. One other thing that's kind of been maybe overlooked is the narrowness of the lot. Right, so you are limited in some way, shape, or form of what can go in, or what will go in, no matter what the zone is, right? Whether it be a house or business, whatever, there's limitations, because setbacks and potential environmental features.
I mean, I agree with them that RA doesn't make sense in that spot. Other people,
Yeah, I agree. Already doesn't make sense. And I know it stinks because we're talking about tweaking and we're trying to minimize that. But it's surrounded by everything else.
I think RA does make sense, just because if we say RA doesn't make sense for those, then it's gonna keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing.
I think
Right.
that's gonna happen
Okay.
every single cycle
So
regardless.
So you either have to hold the line or you don't.
I'm just saying, it's just gonna keep coming up every single time because all these other properties have these special zoning changes now. And so they're gonna fight for it, because they're gonna be like, well, this person has it, and this person has it, and this is over here, and this is over here, it's never gonna end.
So can somebody clarify for me again, which ones are which? Because we have two A and two B.
Two B is this lot where the cursor is, the one to the south of it, and the one to the east. Two A is the long one
And that's the
directly,
child care.
exactly, directly abutting the industrial. And then one is the box highlighted in blue.
Okay, so two B is actually three lots.
That's correct.
So two B is three lots, two A is one singular lot, and then the other one is the separate. Okay. And right now the request is mixed use N, the new designation, which is an 8-story potential. Only. And next to it are single-story warehouses right now, and commercial up top there in the red.
Were those,
It should say probably.
was that business park something else not too long ago?
No,
Like,
that's been there.
it's always been, or for a long time.
I think it's gonna be weird if we do that, and you're gonna have commercial, RA, and then something else, and then back to RA.
What are our options? What are we realistically voting for or deciding between? Because mixed use N is an 8-story building, we also noted that, so what's a step back?
So it comes down to, think about what you want there, right? Do you want residential, do you want industrial, do you want commercial? That's the question I would ask yourself first.
I also think like, we're looking at it from this side of the line, but if you go over to the other side of the line, that's that Crofton
Yeah.
Triangle. I mean, that's it's a giant neighborhood. So it isn't like, if you were to say like, okay, you can build more houses there, it's not totally out of character for the area. I mean, there are apartments across the street. There's a lot of development.
They have different.
They have
ways of-
sewer, they have.
Yeah.
So alternatively, I know we're all thinking about it, it seems like we're kind of at a hard time. What we can do, the group wants this, and we present this to the public. You can state, that the SAC did not come to a consensus on these properties. However, the SAC, again, if this is what you guys are saying, the SAC understands that RA is not the most appropriate zoning here, but cannot determine at this time, what is.
But we could also say, but the requested one is also not the appropriate.
Yes.
Mixed resident, whatever that is.
So can the group agree that mixed use is not appropriate?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, yes, we can absolutely add that as part of the record, or as part of the justification for the no recommendation, if we move forward with the no recommendation.
What are the objections to RLB?
Which is 1 for 5.
One.
Yeah, I think that's on the table.
yeah, so that's within, that's in the game, that's kind of in the range of what's an option, because like you said, how you can even get anything into that southern border part with the, I don't know how you're gonna get down there. Unless you come in from the industrial park or the neighborhood, I
There's a road,
Can't,
there's like roads,
there's no way to get.
other roads,
yeah.
intersecting those lots.
If you look on a map, yeah,
There's one on your side, like.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if one is called.
What do we keep doing?
Yeah, that's-
That's Mimi. She had to go home, but I told her I would let her in as a panelist
Oh,
so she can chat. So I could see somebody was there, but it's not labeled as Mimi, so I had to text her and confirm with her.
Well, Ms. Cox is here, she could tell us what roads are there.
Does anybody have any questions at this time for Ms. Cox?
Could we ask if you couldn't get mixed use, what would be your second preference?
Not related to any form of work or, the adjacency to the development, the frame, what we do is step down. No.
Which ones are over 5? I'm sorry, which ones?
1, 2,
Okay.
Small, seem to be all of them somehow. For me, I mean, I come to the end up, to me, all that being each gender is what looking in a way. So it's being like, you know, it's not all that's not what it is. Looking at it you know, opportunity. So if it's all our own, I mean, and also moving forward. So we saw this next to the park, being like along the way and communicating.
What is this, back to the zoning, what does the small business allow again, building wise and stuff like that?
I mean, it allows residential and smaller type business, like you can still have a single family dwelling. You can have four.
Sounds like the answer.
So it has to, convenience store.
So, but it could be like semi-commercial at the same time, like I could have
Yes.
multiple, it could be commercial at the same time.
If it's redeveloped, goes through site development plan and meets all those requirements. Yeah, I mean, any of the allowed uses.
So it could have a house and then a separate building as a business.
Well, it's gonna primarily be residential use at that point, so. But I mean, you could do a business.
But can you do a, I guess, I don't know, I'm thinking, if you have a business there with no sewer, no water,
I
or,
can't answer.
yeah,
I mean, that's what's happening on that one long parcel, right? It's a daycare, right now.
but that's like a single house, it's not like,
We also did, I mean, we all voted yes for small business for the dentistry in Davidsonville, so. I know that's separate and it's a different story.
yeah, but they're not looking to put in like 4 buildings with delicatessens and everything else.
You don't know
Well,
that. You don't know that.
Dentist?
Woodell. And Davidsonville Road, the dentist office.
Dentist wants to put in
Sarah.
dentist stuff.
They're selling.
He doesn't want to put in dentist.
What do you make?
So at this point, do we want to say we don't have a recommendation because we have to deliberate more at this juncture?
Yeah.
So then,
Small business.
Mimi also said she would support small business.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to vote?
I think everybody can drive down the corner and see what a patchwork road it is. It's, you look at it and you're like, how did this happen? I mean, honestly.
So would somebody like to put an option on the table or 2 or 3 options on the table?
I'd like us to say that we agree that RA is no longer appropriate.
Okay, so you'd like to ask if anybody here thinks other than RA is no longer appropriate in this area to speak up and say your piece. And we respect that because everybody, as Erica said all the time, you know, don't be afraid.
You mean who wants to keep it RA?
Yeah.
I would say keep it RA.
And then is there an option on the table that would be anything other than that anybody would like to put forward at this time?
I like the idea of small business. I mean,
Yeah.
not without like expert on code, I think that gives the opportunity for some more options without having to get a special exception.
Okay, so right now we have 2 options on the, one is to keep it RA, one is to consider small business. Is there?
Second that.
I second.
Better to do something, with that besides agriculture.
So you agree, we have 2 people that think that so far that small business would be appropriate. We have 2 people that think that RA is appropriate. Are there any other?
Mimi also virtually said small business, about 73 for small business.
I'm sorry.
Mimi's virtual.
Oh. Oh, hi, okay, thank you.
But we all agree that mixed use is no, so it was, the top end was, so the request is denied at that level, I guess, but then anything below it is open for discussion.
Yeah.
Is anyone interested in changing just the residential? I know we were talking about perk and all that.
Wait, so what, you mean like our?
Yeah.
When you look at the combined acreage, I think there could be some benefit from it.
Yeah, I'm not against that option either.
Yeah.
Incidentally, farming isn't allowed in these spaces, or it could stay what it is. As a small business.
And somebody said that they wouldn't be opposed to a higher density residential.
Well, not- not
RLD.
RLD, not RL.
RLD,
Yeah.
RLD. Okay, 1 to 5. Is that what I heard?
Are we able to say?
Yeah,
I
3
would
options.
recommend doing a sharing.
Yeah, that's good. That's what she said.
What'd you say?
RA, RLD, or small business.
Okay, so we're gonna do a show of hands.
Are you all think I would recommend starting, doing one at a time, just so we can.
Can we vote for more than one?
Tell me what RLD is again.
1.5 acres. 1 house, 5 acres.
I feel like we should, if one doesn't pass, then we're moving on again.
Oh, yeah, the second one gets a consensus, that's where it stops.
Right,
They
but
are or
again,
not.
these parcels, as I understand it, don't make up, each individual parcel is less than 5 acres. So
They could be
one-
combined.
110 is 12.
So for,
One,
for,
hold on 1 second, let's clarify that. That's, somebody's saying that one parcel is 10 and one parcel is 12. And Ms. Cox is saying that is not true.
3, 4, 5, 1, and 4.
So remember,
What's the big one?
that's separate.
That's,
a separate
that's in the
structure.
childcare
Huh?
center, it's separate.
9 acres on the big one.
This paper's not right. then.
Yeah,
they does them as a
Yeah,
whole,
that's not what it said.
I think it did them as a whole, sorry.
Oh,
So,
so we combined all three.
All
together.
4, sounds like.
if RLD's not an option then.
Right.
So wait, so this 12.4 is just a combination of the 10.5 and the 0.9?
I think 2A, the acreage on 2A, well, first of all, we also have to keep in mind that the acreages that we have are not verified, like you'd have to have an updated survey to verify. So there's always a little bit of difference between what people say that they have and what the internet tells me they have.
That's that, was Victoria.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes, and then 2A is the long one, so that one's gonna be whatever SStat told me that they have. 2B, I can, because we're talking about 3 lots, I gave you the total of the 3 lots for what SStat told me they have.
okay, so it's 3 separate lots at 12.4 acres and 1 separate lot at 10.5 acres.
That's correct. So what Ms. Cox's point is that the 2B, the 3 separate lots, they don't total up to 15 acres, so RLD 1 per 5 doesn't change anything for them.
Right.
But if you combine that with the 10.5, then.
but that's a different owner though, right?
It is a different, okay.
So,
All right, so we have 2A on the paper, it says 10 acres, that's not correct.
That's what SStat told me that they have. They would have to submit an updated survey to verify whatever acreage.
Is that stat our brown trees?
Yeah.
I wanted to be
But SStat is what the county holds it as, acres, right?
As we go through this process and
The 12 is the
SStat,
Any new development requires survey, and a survey would show the actual.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here, what is that?
10.5.
That could be out, that could be out.
But that could be outdated. Usually when I make the tables, I go by what GIS tells me, but GIS hadn't told me an acreage yet, which is why you guys have some bundles.
And what does it say for the other one?
The 3 lots, that would be that combined, that's the combined number that I gave you. I'd have to go lot by lot.
Yeah, what's lot by lot?
SStats is 3.8 for the top one. 5.1 for the bottom. And 3.4 for the side.
So from my point of view, it sounded like a recap, it kind of sounded towards the end here, RLD was no longer something on the table, it sounded like it was mostly still between RA and small business. Or I would recommend a no recommendation at this time. And wait to hear the public comment, if that's what you guys are comfortable with, because I think it is a good point to drive down the shore if you have a good match. But that's my.
That's like what the people want, that makes sense.
So that's up to you all. And again, even if you recommend small business, for example. Comments on it. you'll see that and you can revisit that in August and change it. Or change your.
Yeah, I agree with that, like what Tom Thomas said, but I think we have a consensus that it is not the mixed use.
Correct, and I think what I mentioned earlier with if this group moves forward with a no recommendation, the justification for the no recommendation will state mixed use is too intense, but they understand, you all understand, it's not our.
Well,
If that's what, but the consensus, we have to move forward with.
Can we just say, like, mixed use, we don't feel like mixed use is appropriate, but we don't have an answer for what we do believe is truly appropriate as a group.
So, yeah.
Like,
we have to-
give us your comments.
We just say, what they put into the application, we do not agree with.
That's what I'm saying, no recommendation and then
Yeah.
justification.
So it stays what it is.
And we'll not necessarily state what it is, just so you have no recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we not doing our job if we do that?
No.
No.
We can come back.
Honestly, to only have one. Good.
August.
Yeah, it's gonna open up the public comment, right? And then we'll read all of those.
Yeah, then we
comments,
can come
see
back
what
in
people said.
August.
Yeah, those people down there, those houses would be upset if small businesses go in and I'll just.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, John is upset.
So then, is it fair to say this group is okay with the no recommendation for these at this time?
Yes.
At this time.
Yes.
Yeah, but no recommendations, but not.
No recommendation, justification includes not understanding the mixed use is too.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that?
And, okay, so I know we are over time, I want to be respectful, but we do have one more thing to cover, and it's up to you.
How do you all feel about moving on to the next topic, which is the Wasted Corner, or would you rather not?
May as well.
Yeah.
How long? 5 minutes?
So I did send out the write-up, and that was the draft, we received one comment, very thoughtful, we revised that. One thing I would pass out to you, and this is fairly, should ask about, the number of, areas. So what I'm passing out now is simply this graphic, kind of breaks down the red is what designated today. It is the village center designation.
Is the red?
Is the red. The yellow and the bluish teal color is what was discussed at the last meeting. It was a potential expansion of the village center. And what we did, we broke this down to show the acreages of each, as well as what's kind of currently there. So the yellow currently has, it's a mobile home community, has 151 residential units there. And it has the one commercial site. The one commercial site is essentially like, I don't know if it's a sales office, but it's that kind of use. And then on the blue, the teal, that's the one commercial site again is I think the campground kind of sales type structure, right? So it's not necessarily a commercial use like a gas station. It's more of just like the kind of like the sales tax. So it is currently, they are currently zoned RA. It doesn't sound like this group wants to change the zoning on that, and that's not the point of this. It's just simply to see if the group wanted to expand the designation to allow potentially for more improvements to these areas if and when that's happening.
On the red, what is the zoning on the red?
You go back to the slide, it's a mixed match. There's commercial, there's residential. And open space as well.
And our,
A specific reason to want to increase it for yellow one is also a mobile home community that would benefit from having access, like sidewalk and development to the Wasted Corner area. So that was kind of the goal, or at least we can.
Yeah.
if you don't have to make a village center to get sidewalk or any safety accommodations. That is not necessary. We discussed that last time. So what I see if we were to expand the village center is a future expansion for mixed use apartments, anything else that somebody may come along and say, hey, it's our village center. So we can go ahead and upgrade this development here. So that's my concern for that area, because we can still do sidewalks, we can do all the safety things, we can do crosswalks. That is not prohibited in RA zoning, that is not part of a village center. So that is my concern, is that if we truly want open space in Wasted Corner, that is all abutted to Tuxent River. And I can see future expansion, and I think somebody mentioned that there was conversation by the county executive of apartments in that area.
Mm.
And that is not something that I am very, in support of. I would not support that.
I mean, I don't see the value in adding the blue part, because that's like a campground, right? Like it's an operational campground,
Mhm.
so I would definitely not.
That's not the campground, though,
The blue part is, yes, it is, it's homeward bound.
That's Sands Road there,
Yeah.
thought it was further down.
It's right there.
Expanding, that, I think we should fix what's there,
Dog's campground.
and then if that happens, and then you could decide later, oh, this is so successful, let's expand.
What do you mean fix it? What does that
You
mean?
could almost see them like, oh, let's just
Oh.
blank slate and work over here and ignore this existing part.
So basically, if you revitalize the village center as it exists today and consider future planning to make a really, safe, attractive, public services for the existing residents, and there's a current sewage issue where the sewer apparently has failed in one or more of the trailer parks that the county is apparently also addressing as per that one presentation that we had in the beginning, that at that point in time, should all these things be rectified and or improved or rehabilitated, that this could certainly be a conversation in the future.
Now, I just see it happening a lot around 214, where instead of fixing what was there, they just knock down more trees and build something new. Yeah, revitalize.
And what Anna just mentioned too,
Yeah.
talk about potentially revisiting this in the future as a 10-year plus. We could write something similar to the plan about what Anna just kind of said, like, yeah, if we discuss this now.
Yeah.
We're not expanding it now, we don't want to expand it now, but let's talk about it again in the future.
Yeah,
I
and
think-
I think you put a narrative in, we recognize the density, we recognize that this might, in the future, make a lot of sense to, expand. And on what happens short term.
So it kind of sounds, just from what I'm hearing, don't expand village center now, but maybe write something in the plan, said, SAC decide. Plans to expand now, but maybe in the future, let's at least revisit.
I don't know that we have to specify. I think the people in the future can determine whether they want to revisit it or not. I don't want to write
Oh, yeah,
code.
but I mean, it helps the document. We discussed it, so it's like, you're writing history.
It could be, we're not planning to expand the village center, but we are encouraging connectability from this community
Yeah.
to the village.
I agree with that.
That is
I agree with
really-
that. Yeah, I
So-
definitely agree with that. I don't want to say, because I don't believe that it necessarily will be the case in 10 years. I think it's gonna take 10 years to fix the sewer and rectify a lot of the things here and even come up with a plan for the existing village center. So if in fact, in 20 years or 30 years, the people who are here at that time really feel strongly, they're going to do it. I don't think we have to tell them that they can do it,
Yeah,
because
I
I'm not going to support that.
Yeah, I agree.
But we can say, but,
But yes, absolutely that.
Yeah.
I think improvements are absolutely needed. 100%. I mean, the sewer, the safety, the crosswalk, sidewalks, the accessibility, the improvements for the people who do live here.
Yeah.
So provide connectivity, no expansion.
Yeah.
My vote.
For Anna's point, I hear you talking a lot about the sewer in the village center write-up. We didn't include anything on the sewer. Do you want that? Do you recommend that be included in there? Does anyone have thoughts?
I mean, I think they're addressing it,
Okay.
but I don't know, what I would be qualified to recommend.
Yeah, I still have concerns that they're getting, the private folks are getting.
I think the sewer issue is Maryland Manor.
There's up, right across from what you saying.
Yeah, and it's outside of.
It's not one of those.
It's
I'm
not
not
one of these.
well, the draft, right up just this village center, but we're going to see the draft of the plan too, so if there's something you think is missing, let us know, and again, that's part of the August meeting as well, so draft that thing up from above, send it to PAD. So if there's something missing in that plan, we can talk about that as well. So, and we'll send that to you as soon as we have it done.
I think focus should be on parks and services and things for the folks who are already here,
Mhm.
improvements to that. It's my thoughts. You can say whatever you want. Feel free to be, a different. Than what I. Frank, do you have anything?
No, just get rid of Duffy's. Okay. All done.
Yeah, yes.
The historical landmark.
So then wrapping this up, no expansion, talk about connectivity, and that's basically this, that we haven't already talked about. Perfect, and then moving on, I think that was it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think everyone.
Hilarious.
so, and then one more slide. So unless you guys want to meet May 10th, early in the morning on my Saturday,
We might have public comment, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, it's fine.
Is there anybody that wants to?
I'm saying, I guess you guys are thoughtful and very judicious in the conversation, very well represented in South County, and, I do think on places you do what you came up with a good plan, that I would want to be very careful with the sewer, any sewer capacity changes. You don't want to see an increase in sewer capacity, fixing what's there is a good idea, if it's your needed, but any increase beyond that would be, something I would not like to see. So, thank you.
Thank you. Me too. Okay.
Any carrier is our, planning manager? Is that
Administrator.
Administrator, planning administrator, for, here, administrator.
Can we stay in line?
So again, unless you guys want to meet Saturday morning bright and early, skip that meeting and,
I think Marion did.
see y'all again in August. I will send out a poll invite to make sure we can pick a date that works for hopefully everybody. Because I think that will be the last meeting. It'll be kind of a send off of the plan, as well as any discussion of any comments that are coming in to public review. So there'll be some serious conversation to have potentially, but also some good time and lively, like, thank you stuff as well. So, and again, I'll send the poll, we'll get a date, let you know. Public review, two things, there is a survey online now until May 8th for the agriculture and economic development strategies in Region 8. I know I sent you all a special link to the SAC. If you haven't done that, you want to do that, feel free. It's great staff to understand what the SAC thinks about the strategies that we worked on. Tell your friends, family, neighbors about the online, it's on the Region Hub website. Have them input their information before May 8th as well. And then again, public review zoning, I'll send you all a personal email letting you know when that's live, so you can spread that out as well. We anticipate it being in June, lasting, I think, at least a month, and going from there. So, and then after June and some point in July, I know there's vacations and fun stuff, so I won't have any in July, which is why it's August, but we'll keep you updated on everything.
So we don't have a meeting on June 5th? What is?
No, this is it, unless you want meeting again.
Oh, okay. I just had it on my calendar.
Yeah, I
it
want to
says
make
on
calendar
the,
too.
It says on the website that it was like a virtual forum on June 6th, I guess, is that 5th, or maybe it says 5th.
So, we are gonna have, we as staff are gonna have a recording, I think, of showing how to use the web tool. Maybe that's what in reference to, but, and I know we had another meeting, I think initially planned, before this whole process started, we've actually did really well staying on schedule. Tonight was really well, with one meeting, which is great. Usually these meetings need 2 to 3.
Okay.
So, we are, I think, kind of a little bit of ahead. We have some wiggle room. But yeah, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, email us, call us, whatever, we're always here to help. And we will do our best to keep you as updated as much as possible.
So just for clarity, before May 8th, all the applications are open for public comment, is that what I heard?
No, sorry, my 8th is strategies for agricultural technology.
Okay,
And so,
oh, okay.
yeah, the public review started in June.
Mid-June.
I believe so. Around the mid-June.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Does anybody have any further discussion, questions, clarifications? Needs? Bathrooms that way to the left? Plates can go, unless, are you gonna keep them?
No,
No?
no trash. And if anybody wants any of the food, please help yourself.
Thanks for
just do
Yeah,
the
thank you.
motion and second.
Oh, yeah.
So, have a motion to adjourn,
Motion.
okay?
Second.
Second, all in favor? All right, thank you all so much, great job.